Hey, it's the Midnight Narrator here. I hope your day treated you well. I hope you're somewhere comfortable right now. Blankets pulled up, lights low. Maybe the world outside finally quiet enough to hear yourself think. Here we go. I heard the humming 3 days before I arrived at the station. That's not quite right. Let me try again. I remembered hearing the humming 3 days before I arrived. Except I couldn't have, because I wasn't there yet. I was still in Moscow, sitting in a cafe that smelled like burnt espresso and wet wool, arguing with my editor over a Skype call that kept freezing at the worst moments. But the memory was there anyway, clear as anything, a low, wordless melody. The kind your grandmother might have hummed while braiding your hair or stirring soup on a winter afternoon. Comforting and distant and somehow mine. I wrote it off as stress. Freelance journalism pays in anxiety and irregular meals. Your brain does weird things. When you've been chasing grants and pitches for 6 months straight, sleeping on friends' couches, watching your savings account dwindle to double digits. The Yamal research station sat 200 kilometers into the Siberian taiga, accessible only by helicopter in summer and not at all during the dead months. November was the edge season, still technically flyable, barely warm enough that the permafrost hadn't locked down completely. The station studied climate markers, soil samples, ancient ecosystems preserved in ice. Boring stuff, mostly. The kind of science that only gets funding when politicians need something to point at during climate summits. Dr. Alexei Petrov had offered me the story during a conference in Berlin back in September. "Come see what we're finding," he'd said over bad coffee in a hotel lobby that tried too hard to look expensive. The world needs to know before it's too late. I'd expected thawing mammoth tusks, maybe some dramatic ice core data I could spin into a feature for Nature or The Atlantic. Something to pay rent for 3 months. What I got was stranger. The helicopter dropped me at the station just before sunset. Though sunset didn't mean much this far north in November. The sky went from gray to darker gray like a bruise spreading. Everything smelled like wet earth and old wood smoke, and something else underneath, something organic and faintly sweet that I couldn't place. Petrov met me on the landing pad, a stocky man in his 50s with a gray beard going wide at the edges and tired eyes that still managed warmth. He shook my hand with both of his, the way my father used to. "Maya Reeves," he said, not a question. "You made it." "Barely. Your pilot doesn't believe in small talk." "Dmitri believes in not crashing. Come, I'll show you where you'll sleep and then we eat. You must be tired." I was, bone deep, 8 time zones tired. The kind where your body forgets what time zone it's supposed to be in and just gives up entirely. The station was smaller than I'd imagined. 3 main buildings connected by covered walkways, all of it half buried in the permafrost, like it was slowly sinking. Soviet-era construction, concrete and corrugated metal, function over form. A radio mast rose from the central building, red lights blinking against the gray sky. Beyond the compound, the taiga stretched endlessly, ancient larch trees dark against the snow. Petrov led me inside, through a door that stuck in its frame, and took 2 pulls to open. The interior was warmer than I expected, almost stuffy. Narrow hallways with peeling paint and exposed pipes. Everything echoed. "There are 5 of us now," Petrov said as we walked. "6 with you, small team. Easier that way." "Easier for what?" He didn't answer right away, just smiled in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes. We passed through what looked like a common room, mismatched furniture, a kitchenette, bookshelves sagging under the weight of old paperbacks and scientific journals. A woman sat at the table, mid-40s maybe, with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. She was writing in a notebook, pencil moving in quick, precise strokes. "Lena Aristova," Petrov said, "our geologist." She looked up and smiled, the kind of smile that transforms a serious face into something genuinely warm. "You're the journalist. Welcome to the edge of the world. That bad? That remote? But you'll like it, once you adjust." She went back to her notebook. I noticed her hands, scarred fingers, short nails, the hands of someone who worked with them. My room was barely more than a closet, a narrow bed, a desk, a window that looked out onto the forest. Someone had left a small electric heater running. The walls were thin enough that I could hear muffled voices from somewhere nearby, conversation I couldn't quite make out. "Dinner in an hour," Petrov said. "Bathroom is down the hall, second door. If you need anything, find me or Lena. We're the reasonable ones." He closed the door, and I was alone with the sound of the heater ticking and the faint hum of wind outside and underneath it all, so quiet I almost didn't notice. The humming, that same wordless melody I'd remembered 3 days ago. Real now. Or maybe I was just exhausted. I sat on the bed. The mattress was harder than expected. I closed my eyes for just a moment. When I opened them again, I was standing in the hallway outside my room, holding a cup of tea I didn't remember making. The disorientation hit like vertigo. I looked down to tea, black, steam rising, a chip in the mug's rim. I touched it. Hot. Real. How long had I been asleep? I walked back toward the common room, trying to shake off the fog. Voices grew louder as I approached. Real conversation this time, not muffled. "Can't keep pretending it's normal," someone was saying. A man's voice, younger, tense. "Sergey's been complaining about it for 2 days now." "Sergey complains about everything." That was Lena. "He complained about the coffee this morning. Before that, the generator noise. Before that, this is different." I stepped into the common room. 4 people now instead of 1. Petrov stood by the kitchenette, arms crossed. Lena was still at the table, but she'd closed her notebook. A younger man, late 20s, thin, nervous energy radiating off him, leaned against the wall near the window, smoking a cigarette, even though there was clearly a no-smoking policy nobody enforced. And sitting across from Lena was another woman, late 30s, with sharp features and sharper eyes, watching me with a kind of attention that made my skin prickle. "Our journalist wakes," Petrov said. "Maya, this is Sergei Kozlov, our field technician, and Dr. Irina Volkov, my ecologist." Irina nodded once. "Precise. You slept through dinner. We saved you some stew." I was asleep? I looked at the tea in my hands. "I don't remember. Jet lag is brutal this far north," Lena said. "Your circadian rhythm doesn't know what to do with itself." Sergei stubbed out his cigarette on the windowsill, ignoring Irina's disapproving look. "You hear anything weird while you were sleeping?" "Sergei," Petrov said, voice heavy with warning. "What?" "She's going to notice eventually. Might as well." "Notice what?" I set the tea down on the table. It clinked against the wood, too loud in the sudden silence. The 4 of them exchanged looks. That silent conversation people have when they're deciding what to tell an outsider. Finally, Irina spoke. "There's been some unusual phenomena since the excavation. Auditory hallucinations primarily, a humming sound. Different people describe it differently, but it's consistent enough to be noteworthy. My chest tightened. What kind of humming? Like a lullaby, Sergei said. He lit another cigarette, hands shaking slightly. Like someone singing in the next room, but when you go look, there's nobody there. It's a psychological response to isolation and circadian disruption, Irina continued. Clinical, common in remote research stations. Nothing to be concerned about. But she didn't sound convinced. None of them did. What excavation? I asked. Petrov sighed, rubbed his face with both hands. That's why you're here, isn't it? To see what we've found. I thought I was here to write about climate data. That too. He checked his watch, an old mechanical one, the kind you wind by hand. It's too dark now. Tomorrow morning, first light, I'll show you. For now, eat something. You look like you're about to fall over. He was right. The disorientation was getting worse, like the floor wasn't quite solid under my feet. Lena got up and heated the stew, something with potatoes and unidentifiable meat that tasted better than it looked. I ate at the table while the others talked around me, conversation flowing in and out of focus. Sergei kept glancing at the window. Irina took notes in a different notebook from Lena's, smaller, leather-bound. Petrov cleaned dishes with the methodical care of someone who needed the routine. I finished eating and excused myself. Nobody tried to stop me. Back in my room, I stood at the window and looked out at the forest. Dark now, almost completely. The trees were just shapes against a darker sky. No moon, no stars, just the faint glow from the station's exterior lights, and beyond that, nothing. The humming was clearer now. I could almost make out words. Almost. I pressed my hand against a cold window glass and closed my eyes. That's when I heard my grandmother's voice, singing a song I'd forgotten she even knew. Chapter 2. The Thaw. I didn't sleep well that first night. Every time I started to drift, I'd jerk awake with the sensation that I'd already been asleep for hours, that I'd missed something important. The room was too warm and too cold at the same time, and the walls made settling noises. It sounded almost like footsteps. Around 4 a.m, I gave up. Got dressed in the dark and went to the common room to make coffee. Irina was already there. She sat at the table with a laptop and 3 different notebooks spread around her, the kind of ordered chaos that comes from working through a problem. She looked up when I entered, unsurprised. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Jet lag." Sure." She closed the nearest notebook. "Coffee's fresh. I made it 20 minutes ago, or I'm about to. I honestly can't tell anymore." I paused halfway to the kitchenette. "What?" "Nothing. Ignore me. I've been up for 36 hours. She rubbed her eyes. "Help yourself." The coffee was bitter and strong, exactly what I needed. I sat across from her, warming my hands on the mug. "You're studying the humming," I said, not a question. "Among other things." She tapped her pen against the notebook. "How much has Alexei told you about the excavation?" "Nothing, just that you found something." "We found a lot of things. Pollen records going back 50,000 years, evidence of flora that shouldn't exist this far north, perfectly preserved beetle carapaces, and underneath it all, about 8 meters down..." She stopped, chose her words carefully. "Something older." "How much older?" We're not sure yet. Carbon dating is complicated with permafrost samples. But conservatively, pre-Younger Dryas, which means at least 12,000 years, possibly much more. I sipped my coffee, trying to wrap my head around that timeline. And this thing you found, it's causing the hallucinations? I didn't say that. But you're thinking it. She smiled just slightly, the smile of someone caught. You're observant. That'll serve you well here, or it won't. She closed her laptop. Come on, if you're not sleeping anyway, I might as well show you. Alexei was going to wait until morning, but honestly, I'd rather you see it without his commentary. He has a tendency toward melodrama. We walked through the dark station, our footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Irina led me through a door I hadn't noticed before, down a set of metal stairs that descended into the permafrost itself. The temperature dropped with each step. My breath fogged in the air. The excavation is directly beneath the station, Irina explained. We built the facility here specifically because ground-penetrating radar showed anomalies in the permafrost structure. We thought it was just ice formation patterns. Turned out to be something else. The stairs ended in a tunnel, rough-hewn walls reinforced with metal beams, LED work lights strung along the ceiling. It smelled like earth and something else. That same sweet organic scent from earlier, stronger now. Watch your step, Irina said. It's muddy. The tunnel opened into a chamber about the size of a subway car. Work tables lined one wall, covered in equipment and sample containers. Plastic sheeting hung from the ceiling, sectioning off areas. And in the center, illuminated by work lights. I stopped walking. Jesus Christ! That was Sergei's reaction too, Irina said. It was beautiful and wrong in equal measure, a massive formation of something exposed in the excavation wall. Not quite roots, not quite neural tissue. Fibrous structures branched and intertwined in patterns too complex to follow, spreading through the ice like frozen lightning. Parts of it were white, others darker, almost black. And throughout the whole thing, there was a faint luminescence, like bioluminescence, seen through frosted glass. What is it? I asked. Mycelium, fungal hyphae, but unlike any species we've encountered before. Irina approached it like you'd approach something wild and potentially dangerous. It's enormous. Ground-penetrating radar suggests it extends at least 200 meters in every direction. This is just one small exposed section. I moved closer. The formation pulsed faintly, or maybe that was just my imagination. It's alive? Technically, yes. We've detected metabolic activity, very slow but present. It's been preserved in the permafrost for thousands of years, and it's waking up now because of the thaw. She gestured to the work tables. We've been taking samples trying to understand its structure. Sergei extracted the first core sample 4 days ago. 4 days ago, I repeated, and that's when the humming started? The humming started 3 days ago, for Sergei first, then the rest of us. She pulled back a section of plastic sheeting, revealing a sealed container on one of the tables. Inside, small fragments of the mycelium darker against the white containment tray. Airborne spores. We didn't realize until it was too late. The extraction released them into the tunnel, and from there into the ventilation system. The chamber suddenly felt smaller. You're saying we're breathing this in right now? We've been breathing it in since you arrived. All of us? The filters couldn't catch something this small. Irina's voice remained steady, clinical. Don't panic. It's not killing us. If anything, it seems to be integrating with our neural tissue. The humming is just the first symptom. First symptom of what? She looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that might have been fear or might have been fascination. That's what we're trying to figure out. The lights flickered just once. When they came back on, I could have sworn the mycelium had shifted slightly, though that was impossible, wasn't it? Does anyone else know about this? I asked. I mean, outside the station, have you reported it? To whom? The Ministry of Science? They'd shut us down immediately, quarantine us, probably burn the whole site. Irina shook her head. Alexei wanted to understand it first, to document it properly, hence why he invited you, a journalist with enough credibility to tell the story right, but independent enough not to report directly to any government agency. That's why I'm here. I'm your insurance policy. You're our witness, she corrected. There's a difference. We stood in silence for a moment, looking at the exposed mycelium. The faint, sweet smell was stronger down here, almost cloying. I thought about the humming, about my grandmother's voice. The hallucinations, I said. Why are they personal? Why does everyone hear something different? We're still working on that theory, but if I had to guess... Irina touched the sealed container lightly, almost reverently. I think it's reading us, accessing our memories, finding patterns it recognizes, lullabies, songs, familiar voices. These are neural pathways already well established in our brains. The mycelium is just following them, learning how we work. That's not possible. 6 months ago, I would have agreed with you. She turned away from the work table. Come on, I'll show you the rest of the samples. You might as well understand what you're documenting. We spent the next hour in that underground chamber while Irina explained her findings in precise, careful detail. The mycelium's structure, its apparent age, the way the spores seem to seek out nervous tissue specifically, crossing the blood-brain barrier with disturbing ease. She showed me microscope slides, chemical analysis, PET scan images of her own brain showing unusual activity in the temporal lobe. This was taken yesterday, she said, indicating one of the images. And this was taken 6 hours ago. You can see the progression. The difference was clear even to my untrained eye. New neural pathways lighting up like roads on a map. Does it hurt? I asked. No. If anything, it feels, I don't know, like remembering something you'd forgotten. Like deja vu that won't stop. She closed the laptop. Sergei's experiencing it more intensely. He was exposed to the highest concentration during the extraction. The rest of us are a few days behind him. And me. You'll start noticing it soon, if you haven't already. I thought about waking up in the hallway with the tea, about the humming, about the strange sensation that I'd been here before, that I'd already had this conversation. We should go back up, Irina said. The others will be wondering where we went, or they already know, or they're about to know. Time is getting slippery. We climbed the stairs in silence. The station was starting to wake up. I could hear someone moving around in the kitchen, the hiss of the coffee maker, footsteps overhead. Normal morning sounds, except nothing felt quite normal anymore. In the common room, Petrov and Lena were already at the table, both with coffee, both looking like they hadn't slept well either. Sergei was conspicuously absent. "You showed her," Petrov said to Irina, not quite accusatory, but close. "She deserved to know what she's walking into. She deserved a proper introduction, context, not—" He stopped himself, took a breath. "Never mind. What's done is done. Maya, I apologized. This isn't how I wanted to handle this." "It's fine," I said, though it wasn't. "I'm here to document. The sooner I understand what I'm documenting, the better." Lena pushed a plate of bread and jam toward me. "Eat something, and then I'll show you the radar data. It'll make more sense when you see the scale of what we're dealing with." I sat down. The bread was dark rye, dense and good. The jam was lingonberry, tart enough to cut through the sweetness of the lingonberry. I was hungrier than I'd realized. "Where's Sergei?" I asked between bites. The three of them exchanged looks again. That same silent conversation. "He's resting," Petrov said finally. "The symptoms are affecting him more severely. Disorientation, temporal confusion. He's having trouble distinguishing between what he's experienced and what he's about to experience. Should he see a doctor?" "We're all the doctors he's got out here," Lena said, "and there's nothing a hospital could do that we can't. Not for this." I wanted to argue, but what was the point? We were 200 kilometers from civilization in a region where helicopters didn't fly in bad weather, and according to the window, the sky was the color of old dishwater. We were stuck here, all of us. The humming was constant now. I could not hear it anymore. My grandmother's voice singing something in a language that might have been Russian or might have been something older. "How long?" I asked. "Before we all end up like Sergei?" Nobody answered. Petrov just sipped his coffee and stared at nothing, and I realized he was probably experiencing this moment for the second or third time, already living in his own echo. Chapter 3. First Fracture. Sergei appeared in the common room around noon, though I had lost track of time by then. The gray light through the windows never changed, and my phone had stopped making sense. The clock said 12:47, but I could have sworn it had said the same thing an hour ago. He looked terrible. Greasy hair, 3 days of stubble, eyes red-rimmed and darting. He wore the same thermal shirt from yesterday, stained with something dark under the arms. "I already told you this," he said to no one in particular. He was standing in the doorway, one hand on the frame like he needed it for balance. "I already said—" "Wait, no, I'm about to tell you." Petrov stood up from the table. "Sergei, when did you last sleep?" "Tuesday or Wednesday. I slept on Wednesday. I'm sleeping right now, actually. I can see myself sleeping." He laughed high and thin. "Except I'm not there. I'm here, but I'm also there, watching myself here. Do you understand?" "Come sit down," Lena said, her voice careful, the way you talk to a spooked animal. "Let's get you some water." "I don't want water. I wanted water an hour ago. I'm going to want water in 20 minutes. Sergei moved into the room, his gait unsteady. "It's happening faster now. The intervals are getting shorter. Soon it's all going to happen at once." I watched from my spot near the window, notebook in hand, though I hadn't written anything in an hour. My fingers felt numb. The pen kept slipping. Irina entered from the hallway, medical kit in hand. She must have been listening. "Sergei, I need to examine you, check your vitals." "You already did. You're about to. You're doing it right now somewhere else." He sat down heavily in a chair, head in his hands. I can't make it stop. I keep seeing myself, and there's no bottom to it. Do you know what I mean? There's something at the bottom, looking up through all the layers. The room went very quiet. What do you mean, something? Petrov asked. Sergei looked up. His eyes weren't focusing right. In the network, in the mycelium. It's not empty. There's something living in it, something that's been there a long time, and it's hungry. I can feel it watching through my memories. Irina opened the medical kit, pulled out a blood pressure cuff. That's a hallucination, Sergei. The temporal disorientation is creating false perceptions. There's nothing in the mycelium except the mycelium itself. You don't believe that. He let her wrap the cuff around his arm without resistance. None of you believe that anymore. She didn't argue, just pumped the cuff and watched the gauge. I glanced at Lena. She was staring at her hands, turning them over slowly like she'd never seen them before. Her lips were moving silently, counting maybe, or repeating something. Blood pressure's elevated, Irina said. Heart rate 110. Sergei, when did you eat last? I don't remember. I remember everything. Those are the same thing now. Petrov caught my eye and tilted his head toward the hallway. I followed him out, grateful for an excuse to leave. We walked to his office, a small room stuffed with papers, sample cases, and a desk buried under geological surveys. He closed the door behind us and leaned against it. How are you feeling? He asked. Honestly, preferably. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I sat in the only chair not covered in papers. This morning, I had a full conversation with you about evacuation protocols, except it hasn't happened yet, or it's happening right now. I can't tell anymore. He nodded, unsurprised. What did I say? In this conversation that hasn't happened? You said we can't evacuate until the weather clears. That Dmitri won't fly in anything below 50 meters visibility. You said we have maybe 4 days before we're all like Sergei. That sounds like something I'd say. He moved to the window, looked out at the gray nothing. The problem is, Sergei's right about the intervals getting shorter. I'm experiencing echoes about 10 minutes ahead now, sometimes 15. And the recursion, the echoes within echoes, that's new. Started this morning. What does Irina say? Irina says it's fascinating. He smiled without humor. She's a scientist first. Fear comes second. But even she's getting worried. The rate of progression is faster than her models predicted. I opened my mouth to ask another question, then stopped, because I'd already asked it. The memory was there, clear and complete. Me asking about the radio. Petrov explaining that the station's long-range transmitter had gone down 2 days ago. Something about ice damage to the antenna. Except we were having this conversation for the first time, weren't we? You're experiencing it right now, Petrov said, watching my face. The echo. I can see it in your eyes. What did you just remember that hasn't happened yet? The radio, I said slowly. It's broken. It's not broken yet. It will be in about... He checked his watch. 4 hours. The mounting bracket is compromised. Ice buildup. Lena's going to try to fix it, but the bolts are stripped. We'll lose communications completely by this evening. How do you know that? Because I've already lived it. I watched Lena come back inside, hands bleeding from the cold, crying because she couldn't fix it. I held her while she cried. That was this afternoon, which hasn't happened yet. The certainty in his voice made my stomach drop. We need to call for evacuation now, before we lose the radio. Lena's doing that, or she did it, or she's about to. He rubbed his face. This is the hardest part. Coordinating action when everyone's experiencing time at different rates. Sergei is hours ahead. I'm minutes ahead. You're catching up. Irina seems to be the most grounded, but even she's starting to slip. What about the mycelium? Can we destroy it? Burn the excavation site? I've thought about that. I'm going to think about it. I've already decided. He looked at me directly. But I need you to do something first. I need you to write everything down. All of it. What we found. What's happening to us. Irina's research. If this goes wrong, and I think it will, someone needs to have a record, a real record, not just scattered notes and sample data. You're talking like we're not getting out. I'm talking like I've seen enough echoes to know that some of us don't. His voice was gentle but firm. I need you to promise me, no matter what happens, you document everything, even if it doesn't make sense, especially if it doesn't make sense. Before I could answer, there was a crash from the common room, shouting. We both ran. Sergei was on the floor, convulsing. Irina and Lena were trying to hold him down, but he was fighting them, eyes rolled back, making sounds that weren't quite words. The humming was louder now. Or maybe that was just my perception. It seemed to be coming from everywhere at once. "Help me," Irina shouted. "He's going to hurt himself." Petrov dropped to his knees, grabbing Sergei's shoulders. I stood frozen, watching. This was wrong. I'd already seen this. The memory hit me like cold water. Sergei on the floor, Irina shouting, Petrov holding him down. And then Sergei going still, opening his eyes and saying, "It's not trying to hurt us," Sergei said, his voice suddenly clear. "It's trying to share. It experiences everything simultaneously, past, present, future, all the same moment. It doesn't understand why we can't." He went limp, breathing, but unconscious. "Get him to his room," Irina said, already checking his pulse. "We need to sedate him. Maya, there's diazepam in the medical supplies, second cabinet in the lab, 5 milligrams. Go." I went. My legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. The lab door was already open. Had I opened it? Was I about to? I found the diazepam. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. When I got back to the common room, they'd moved Sergei to the couch. Irina administered the injection with practiced efficiency. His breathing slowed, deepened. "He'll sleep for a few hours," she said. "Maybe longer. His brain needs the rest." "What he said," Lena spoke up, her voice tight, "about the mycelium trying to share its perception. Do you think—" "I think we're losing him," Petrov interrupted. "And we'll be next if we don't figure this out." I sat down at the table, opened my notebook, started writing, because what else could I do? The entry started. Day 2 at Yamal Station. Sergei is experiencing severe temporal disorientation. The rest of us are approximately 12 to 24 hours behind him in symptom progression. The mycelium appears to be rewriting our neural architecture to perceive time non-linearly. Dr. Volkov believes the process is irreversible once it reaches a certain threshold. I stopped writing. I'd already written this. The page in front of me was blank, but I remembered the words, the specific way my handwriting slanted, the place where I'd crossed out neural architecture and written temporal perception. instead. Except I hadn't crossed anything out yet. "It's getting worse," I said. Nobody asked what I meant. They already knew. Lena stood up abruptly. "I need to fix the radio before it's too late." "It's already too late," Petrov said quietly, "but try anyway." She grabbed her coat and went out into the gray afternoon. Through the window, I watched her climb the ladder to the roof where the antenna was mounted. She looked small against the enormous sky. Irina pulled up a chair next to me. "Tell me about your echoes. How far ahead are you experiencing?" 10 minutes, maybe more. It's hard to tell." "And the recursion? Are you seeing echoes of echoes yet?" I thought about it, tried to separate what I'd actually experienced from what I'd remembered experiencing. It was like trying to find the edge of a Mobius strip. "I don't know," I admitted. "Everything's starting to blend together." She made a note in her ever-present notebook. "The progression is accelerating. Based on Sergei's current state and extrapolating forward, I estimate we have 3 to 4 days before we all reach critical temporal desynchronization." "What does that mean?" "It means we'll be experiencing so many overlapping time frames simultaneously that coordinated action becomes impossible. Communication breaks down. We each become isolated in our own temporal stream." She looked at me. "We'll be alone, even while we're standing right next to each other." Petrov had moved to the window, watching Lena work. His hands were pressed against the glass, and I could see his breath fogging it. "She's going to fall," he said. "What?" "In about 90 seconds. The ladder bolt is loose. She's going to reach for the antenna mounting. The ladder will shift and she's going to fall. I've already seen it." My heart started hammering. "Then stop her. Radio her. Tell her to come down." "I can't." His voice was hollow. "I've tried. In the echo, I tried. I yelled, I radioed, I even ran outside. But she falls anyway, exactly the same way, every time I remember it. That's not... You can't know that. Just because you've seen it in an echo doesn't mean..." He turned to look at me, and his eyes were wet. "You still think we have free will? That's sweet." Outside, Lena reached for the antenna. The ladder shifted. She fell. The sound she made when she hit the ground wasn't loud, more like a thump, muffled by the snow. Petrov was already moving, grabbing the medical kit, shouting for Irina. I sat frozen at the table, watching through the window as they ran out to her, as they knelt in the snow, as Irina checked for a pulse and looked up at Petrov and shook her head. No, that wasn't right. I was going to remember, Irina checking for a pulse and nodding. Lena was alive, hurt, but alive. Broken arm, possible concussion, but alive. Except that's not what happened. Unless it hadn't happened yet, or had already happened differently. The notebook was in my hands, pages flipping, in a breeze I couldn't feel. The words I'd written were there and not there, present and absent, shifting like something seen through water. Day 2 at Yamal Station, it said, and beneath that, in handwriting that was mine but wasn't, we're not experiencing the future. We're experiencing what it wants us to experience. I didn't remember writing that. I was about to write it. I had already written it. The humming grew louder, and underneath it, something else. Not my grandmother's voice anymore. Something older, something that had been waiting in the frozen dark for thousands of years, patient and hungry, and finally, awake. Through the window, I watched Petrov and Irina carry Lena's body inside. Except when I looked again, Lena was walking, holding her arm, alive. Except when I looked again, they were still outside, still kneeling, still surrounded by red snow. Both things were true. Neither thing was true. Time was breaking, and we were breaking with it. Chapter 4. The Loop tightens. Lena was alive. Her arm was broken in two places, the wrist and just above the elbow. Irina splinted it with aluminum stays from the equipment storage and enough medical tape to mummify a small child. Lena didn't cry, just sat very still at the table, staring at her arm like it belonged to someone else. "I felt it happen before it happened," she said. Her voice was flat, shock probably, but there was something else underneath. I was reaching for the antenna, and I felt the pain in my arm, sharp, specific, and I knew the ladder was going to shift, but I reached anyway. I watched myself reach. I couldn't stop. "Muscle memory," Irina said, wrapping the last piece of tape. "Your motor cortex was following a pattern it had already." "No." Lena looked up. "I chose to reach. I watched myself choose to reach. And I couldn't choose anything else. Does that make sense?" It did. God help me, it did. I'd been sitting at the table for the past hour, or hours I'd lost count, watching my hand write in the notebook. Except I wasn't controlling it. I was watching myself write, experiencing the decision to write a half-second before I made it. The pen already moving by the time the intention reached my conscious mind. "This is what it's like," I'd written, "to be a passenger in your own body." Petrov paced near the window. He'd been pacing for a while now, or he was about to start, or he'd never stopped. The movement felt eternal, recursive. Every few passes he'd stop and press his forehead against the glass, breath fogging it, then start pacing again. "The radio?" Irina asked. "Still broken," Lena said. "The antenna's intact, but there's ice in the connection housing. Even if I'd managed to clear it, the mounting bolts are stripped. We'd need parts we don't have." She flexed the fingers of a good hand. "We're isolated." "We've been isolated," Petrov said without turning from the window. "We're going to be isolated. We are isolated. All of those are true right now." Sergei was still unconscious on the couch, breathing slow and even. Irina had checked him twice in the last, how long? 20 minutes? An hour? He looked peaceful, almost, like sleep was the only escape left. I envied him. "We need to talk about what Sergei said," I spoke up. My voice sounded strange to me, like I was hearing it from underwater. "Before he collapsed, about something living in the mycelium." "He was hallucinating," Irina said, but she didn't sound convinced. "Was he?" I flipped back through my notebook, found the page I was looking for, except the page kept shifting, words rearranging themselves. I read aloud anyway. He said, "There's something at the bottom, looking up through all the layers." What if he's right? What if this isn't just a fungal network? What if something's using it? Petrov stopped pacing. "Using it for what?" "To feed," Lena said quietly. We all turned to look at her. She was very pale, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cold. "I've been experiencing it too, in the echoes. There's a presence, a hunger. It's not malicious exactly, it just doesn't understand what we are, doesn't understand that breaking us apart might be the same as killing us." "You're anthropomorphizing a temporal anomaly," Irina said. but her hands were shaking as she packed up the medical supplies. Assigning intent where there's only mechanism, then explain the lullabies. Lena's voice rose slightly, the first crack in her composure. Explain why it's using our memories, our dead relatives, our childhood songs. That's not mechanism, that's selection, that's choice. Irina didn't answer. The humming grew louder, or maybe my perception of it was just sharpening. I could hear it now as distinct voices. My grandmother, yes, but also others. A child singing, a man's deep bass, a woman's alto that might have been my mother's. All of them weaving together in harmonies that shouldn't work, but did. I want to show you something, Irina said abruptly. She stood, grabbed her laptop. I've been running analysis on the temporal displacement patterns, mapping them against our neural scans. She opened the laptop on the table, pulled up a series of images, brain scans, color-coded, time-stamped. This is Sergei's brain, 48 hours ago. She pointed to the first image, normal activity patterns, and this is 12 hours ago. See the new pathways? The mycelium is creating neural structures that don't exist in human neurology, specifically in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, memory formation and decision-making centers. She clicked through more images. But here's what's interesting. The patterns aren't random. They're organized, almost like circuitry or writing. Writing? I leaned closer. The patterns did look deliberate, branching structures that repeated with variations like syntax. I think it's trying to communicate, Irina said, not through language as we understand it, but through experiential memory. It's rewriting our neural architecture to perceive the way it perceives, not sequentially, not linearly, all at once. Jesus, Lena whispered. There's more. Irina pulled up another file. I ran the pattern analysis through a linguistic algorithm just to see, and it found something. She turned the laptop so we could all see. The screen showed a graph, peaks and valleys, almost like a waveform. This is the temporal displacement pattern, how far ahead each of us is experiencing echoes, graphed over time. It's not random. It's following a progression, a sequence. What kind of sequence? Petrov asked. Fibonacci, Irina said. The golden ratio, the mathematical pattern underlying natural growth structures, spiral shells, flower petals, galaxies. The mycelium is organizing us, arranging our temporal perception according to a mathematical constant that exists throughout nature. The room went very quiet. Why? I finally asked. I don't know, but whatever it is, whatever consciousness exists in that network. She stopped, swallowed hard. It thinks we're part of it now, part of the same system. It's trying to harmonize us. On the couch, Sergei stirred. His eyes opened, but he wasn't looking at anything in the room. He was looking at something else, something beyond. It's beautiful, he said, voice dreamy. You'll see. When you get far enough ahead, when the echoes start to overlap completely, you'll see. Time isn't a line, it's a sphere. Everything touching everything else. And at the center, he stopped, blinked, focused on us for the first time. At the center, he continued, voice changing, becoming clearer. There's something very old, something that's been inside the mycelium so long it doesn't remember what it was before, and it's so hungry. Sergei, Petrov moved toward him. How are you feeling? I feel everything. I'm feeling it right now. I felt it yesterday. I'll feel it tomorrow, all the same. He sat up slowly, movements careful. I know what we have to do. What? Burn it, the excavation, the samples, all of it, before the synchronization completes. We discussed this, Irina said. If we destroy the samples, we lose the only chance we have to understand. There's nothing to understand, Sergei interrupted. It's not science, it's appetite, and we're the meal. He looked at each of us in turn. I've seen what happens if we don't burn it. I've lived through that timeline. We all end up like me, lost in the echoes, aware of everything and nothing, trapped in a recursive hell while that thing at the center feeds on our dissolution. You're experiencing trauma-induced delusion, Irina said, but she sounded uncertain. The temporal displacement is creating false memories of timelines that don't exist. All timelines exist, Sergei said. That's what I'm trying to tell you. We just usually only experience one of them. But now we're experiencing all of them at once, and most of them end badly. Lena cradled her broken arm. What if he's right? What if we're just prolonging this, making it worse? We need more data, Irina insisted. We need to understand the mechanism before we... There is no before, Petrov said quietly. We all turned to him. He was still by the window, but his reflection in the glass looked wrong. Too many reflections. Too many versions. There's only during. We're in the middle of it now, and we've been in the middle of it forever, and we'll always be in the middle of it. That's how it works when time stops being sequential. He turned to face us, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Resignation, maybe, or acceptance. Alexei, Irina started, but he held up a hand. I've lived this moment 247 times, he said, give or take. In most versions, we argue about what to do for hours, sometimes days. In 83 versions, we vote. In 92, we split up. Some wanting to burn it, some wanting to preserve it. In every single version, we're too late. The synchronization completes before we act. How can you possibly know that? Irina demanded. Because I'm further ahead than you think. He smiled sadly. I'm experiencing echoes 3 days out now, maybe 4. I've watched all of this play out to the end. I've seen us die. I've seen us go mad. I've seen us become part of the network, our consciousness dissolved into that collective non-time where everything is always and never and now. And in any of those timelines, Lena asked, voice barely above a whisper, do any of us get out? Petrov looked at me, held my gaze. One, he said. In one timeline, Maya gets out. Just Maya. My blood went cold. How? I don't know yet. That echo hasn't reached me. But I remember you leaving. I remember the helicopter. I remember... He paused, choosing words carefully. I remember you being changed, different, but alive, outside. What about the rest of you? He didn't answer, didn't need to. Sergei stood up from the couch, movements jerky, uncoordinated. We need to burn it tonight, now, before I get any further ahead, before I can't coordinate with linear time at all, please. Irina was shaking her head. This is insane. We're scientists. We don't destroy unique discoveries because we're scared. This isn't discovery, Sergei said. It's infection, and if we don't stop it here, it'll spread. The permafrost is thawing everywhere. There could be networks like this all over the taiga, all over the Arctic, waking up, hungry, reaching for minds to rewrite. He's right. The words came out of my mouth before I fully decided to say them. We have to burn it. Irina looked at me like I'd betrayed her. Maybe I had. "You're a journalist. You're supposed to want the truth." "I want to live," I said, "and I want other people to live. That's more important than truth right now." The silence stretched. Outside, the sky was darkening. Actual night this time, not just gray afternoon. The station lights cast long shadows through the room. Finally, Petrov spoke. "We vote Democratic. Burn it or preserve it. Majority decides." He looked at each of us. "Irina?" "Preserve," she said, jaw set. "We can't destroy something this significant." "Lena?" She touched her broken arm, wincing. "Burn it." "Sergei?" "Burn it, obviously." "Maya?" I thought about my grandmother's voice in the humming, about Lena's fall existing in multiple states, about Sergei's eyes when he talked about the thing at the center. "Burn it," I said. Petrov nodded. 3-1. We burn it. He checked his watch. "It's 1947. We'll gather materials, accelerants, ignition sources, set charges in the excavation tunnel, trigger it remotely from the surface. If we move fast, we can do this before midnight." "This is a mistake," Irina said, but she was already moving, already helping despite her objection. That was the thing about being a scientist. Even when you disagreed, you followed the method. You played your part. We spent the next hour preparing. Petrov and Sergei gathered diesel fuel from the generator room, jerry cans sloshing as they carried them. Lena, one-armed, organized the detonation equipment. Mining charges left over from the excavation work, blasting caps, a remote trigger. I documented everything, taking photos, writing notes, trying to preserve some record of what we were about to do. Irina worked in silence, her face a mask. Around 21, while we were ready, the fuel cans were staged at the tunnel entrance. The charges were set. All that remained was to place everything, wire it up, and light the match. "I'll do it," Sergei said. "I should be the one. I started this." "We'll do it together," Petrov corrected. "No one person carries this." They descended into the tunnel, carrying the fuel and charges. The rest of us waited in the common room, tense and silent. I watched the clock, watched my hand write in the notebook, even though I wasn't consciously controlling it. "This is how we try to kill God," I'd written. With diesel fuel and mining charges and desperate hope. 20 minutes later, they emerged. Sergei's face was gray. Petrov's hands were shaking. "It's ready," Petrov said. "Charges set, fuel distributed. We trigger it from here. The tunnel will collapse, contain the fire. Everything down there burns." He held up the remote detonator. A simple device, military surplus. A single button protected by a clear plastic safety cover. "Last chance," he said, looking at Irina. "If anyone wants to stop this, speak now." Irina's jaw worked. She looked like she might cry, but she said nothing. Petrov flipped open the safety cover. "For what it's worth," he said, "I'm sorry. To the mycelium, to whatever consciousness exists in it. I'm sorry we couldn't coexist. I'm sorry we're too afraid and too human to let you live." He pressed the button. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. Nothing. "The detonator's dead," he said, voice tight. The battery was fresh," Sergei said. "I checked it myself. This morning, or yesterday, or—" "It doesn't want to die," Lena whispered. We all turned to look at her. "Don't you see?" she continued. "It knows. It's in our heads. It knows what we're planning. It's been in every echo, every memory, and it's stopping us." "That's not possible," Irina said. It's a fungus. It can't manipulate electronics. But even as she said it, I felt the truth of Lena's words. The mycelium had been in our minds for days now, learning us, reading us. It had seen every version of this moment, every timeline where we tried to kill it, and it had adapted. The lights flickered once, twice. When they came back on, the humming was louder. Not just my grandmother now, not just familiar voices, something else underneath, something vast and patient, and finally done being patient. On the table, my notebook's pages turned by themselves, flipping backward and forward simultaneously. The words on each page were changing, rewriting themselves in real time. You can't kill what exists outside of time. We are sorry too, but hunger is older than mercy. Sergei started laughing, high, thin, breaking. It's been playing us this whole time. Every decision we made, every plan, it already lived through it, already saw it coming, already prevented it. The station groaned. Not wind, not settling. The sound of something waking up beneath us. Petrov dropped the useless detonator, looked at me. "Run," he said. "What?" "You're the one who gets out. I've seen it. You run now. Get to the helicopter pad. Radio Dmitri, don't come back for us." "I'm not leaving you." "You already did," he said, and there were tears on his face. "I remember it. You leave, we stay. That's how this goes. That's the only timeline where someone survives." The floor shuddered. Down in the tunnel, something was burning without fire, glowing with a light that hurt to look at. Irina grabbed my arm. "He's right. Go, document this. Tell people what happened here. Don't let us die for nothing." The humming became a roar, and beneath it, something that might have been words in a language dead before human language was born. Join us. Become eternal. Experience everything. Go! Petrov shoved me toward the door. "Now!" I went. I grabbed my coat, my notebook, my camera. I ran through the hallway as the lights died one by one behind me. I burst out into the night. Real night. Stars visible for the first time. The sky clear and cold and impossibly vast. Behind me, the station was changing. The walls were wrong. The windows showed rooms that couldn't exist, moments that hadn't happened yet or had already passed. I ran for the helicopter pad. I didn't look back. Chapter 5. Sergei's Dissolution. The cold hit me like a wall, real cold, kind that finds every gap in your clothing and crawls inside. My breath came in ragged clouds. The snow crunched under my boots, too loud, each step a betrayal that said, "I'm leaving them, I'm leaving them, I'm leaving them." The helicopter pad was maybe 200 meters from the main building. Might as well have been 200 kilometers. My legs felt disconnected, moving on their own while my mind screamed to go back, to help, to not be the kind of person who runs. But I kept running, because Petrov had seen this, had lived this moment enough times to know it was the only way. And who was I to argue with a man who'd already died in 247 different timelines? Halfway to the pad, I fell, just straight down, knee hitting ice, hands catching myself on instinct. The notebook went flying, pages scattering in the snow. I scrambled to gather them, fingers already numb, and that's when I felt it. The echo, not mine, someone else's, bleeding through the space between us, the way the mycelium had tangled all our perceptions together. Sergei's echo. And I was back in the station, watching through his eyes, experiencing what he was experiencing right now. even though I was outside in the snow. The common room had changed. The walls were breathing, not metaphorically, actually breathing, expanding and contracting like lung tissue. The floor had become something organic, fibrous, mycelial threads spreading from cracks in the concrete. Sergei stood in the center of it, watching his hands. They were multiplying, or he was watching himself, watching his hands from every moment he'd ever existed, all at once. Child hands, old man hands, hands that belonged to versions of himself that had never been born. All of them real, all of them his. "I can see it now," he said to Petrov, or to Irina, or to himself. He couldn't tell anymore. The shape of it, the thing at the center. "What is it?" someone asked. Everyone asked. The question echoed backward and forward through time. It's not from here, not from Earth. It came from somewhere else, somewhere the rules are different. It crashed here, I don't know when, before ice, before cold, and it's been waiting ever since, trapped in the frozen dark, experiencing everything simultaneously because that's the only way it knows how to exist. The walls pulsed. The humming grew louder, harmonizing with itself across infinite timelines. "And it's not evil," Sergei continued, his voice dreamy, distant. "It doesn't understand evil. It just wants to not be alone anymore. It wants to share what it sees. The beauty of experiencing everything at once, every version of yourself, every choice you've ever made or will make, all existing together in one eternal moment." "Sergei?" Irina's voice tight with fear. "Come back. You're going too far in." "There's no in or out anymore. There's just everywhere, everywhen." He looked at her, and his eyes were changing, the pupils dilating and contracting in patterns that didn't match his heartbeat. "Do you want to know what I see when I look at you?" "No. I see you as a child, learning to read. I see you at university, falling in love with a boy who didn't love you back. I see you old, dying in a hospital bed you haven't reached yet. I see all of you, every version, every moment, and you're so beautiful, Irina. You're so heartbreakingly beautiful." Irina was crying. Petrov stood frozen near the door, his face a mask of horror. "And the thing at the center," Sergei whispered, "it wants me to show you. It wants me to help you see, because seeing is the same as becoming, and becoming is the same as never having been anything else." His skin was changing, not decomposing, transcending, mycelial threads emerging from his pores, spreading across his flesh like frost patterns on glass. He wasn't dissolving, he was expanding, becoming more. "It doesn't hurt," he said, smiling. "I thought it would hurt, but it's like finally understanding a joke you've been hearing your whole life. Everything makes sense now. Everything's always made sense. We just couldn't see it because we insisted on experiencing time sequentially, like we had a choice." "Sergei, please." Petrov stepped forward. "Fight it. You're still you. You can still—" "I've always been this," Sergei interrupted. "I'm going to always be this. I was this before I was born. Tense doesn't mean anything anymore, Alexei, don't you see? We're all going to be this. We already are. We always have been." The threads spread further up his neck, across his face, into his eyes, his mouth, his ears. He didn't resist. He opened himself to it, welcoming the dilution, the expansion, the becoming. "Tell Maya," he said, and his voice was changing, becoming multiple, harmonizing with the humming. "Tell her it's not her fault. Tell her someone had to survive to warn people. Tell her—" His words fragmented, became music, became mathematics, became something beyond language. The last thing Sergei, who had been Sergei, saw was Petrov backing away, hands over his mouth, shoulders shaking with sobs. And then Sergei was everywhere and nowhere and always, experiencing every moment of his existence simultaneously, and it was terrifying and beautiful, and he couldn't tell the difference anymore, and maybe there had never been a difference at all. I gasped, back in my own body, kneeling in the snow with Sergei's final coherent moments still echoing in my skull. My stomach heaved. Nothing came up. I hadn't eaten in hours, but my body tried anyway, convulsing with the need to expel something, anything. He's gone, I thought. Sergei is gone, and I'm running, and they're all going to end up like him, and I can't stop it. I can't help them. I can't get up. The voice was mine, but not mine, a memory of something I was about to say to myself, or had already said. Time was breaking apart, even out here, even away from the station. I forced myself to stand, grabbed the scattered notebook pages. Some of them were blank, some were filled with writing in languages that didn't exist. Some showed sketches of things I'd never drawn. I shoved them all in my pocket and kept moving. The helicopter pad was just ahead. The radio shack next to it was dark, but I could see the antenna, still intact, still functional. I could call Dmitri. I could get out. Except in 92 timelines, you don't make it. Petrov's voice echoed in my memory. In 92 timelines, you collapse before you reach the radio. In 18, the radio doesn't work. In 7, Dmitri is already infected, already experiencing echoes, and he crashes on the way here. "Shut up," I said out loud. "Shut up, shut up, shut up." But the voices didn't stop, couldn't stop, because they were all real, all possible, all happening in the spaces between moments where the mycelium had rewritten causality itself. I reached the radio shack. The door was unlocked. Inside, it smelled like oil and old electronics, and that sweet organic scent that meant the spores were everywhere, had always been everywhere, would always be everywhere. The radio was old Soviet military equipment, built to survive nuclear war and operator incompetence. I grabbed the handset, flipped the switches Petrov had shown me, in an echo I couldn't remember actually experiencing. Static. I tried the emergency frequency, more static. Then underneath it, something else. The humming, coming through the radio, not transmitted, manifested. The mycelium was in the radio, in the wiring, in the electromagnetic spectrum itself. "Dmitri," I said into the handset, voice cracking. "This is Yamal Station. Emergency evacuation. Repeat, emergency evacuation. Multiple casualties. Requesting immediate pickup. Over." Static, humming. The sound of my grandmother singing. "Dmitri, goddammit, if you can hear me." "I hear you." His voice. Dmitri's voice. "Thank God, thank God, thank..." "I've been hearing you for 3 days, Maya. You've called me 17 times. I've crashed 12 of those times. In 3, I make it to you, but I'm already infected and we both die. In 2, I refuse to come because I know it's a trap." My blood went cold. "Dmitri? This is timeline number 18, or maybe 19. I'm losing count." His voice was wrong, too calm, too distant. "I'm in the air now. I was in the air yesterday. I'll be in the air tomorrow. Time is a circle, and I'm flying around its edge forever." "Are you coming or not?" "I'm already there. I'm already dead. I'm already home with my daughter, reading her a bedtime story she'll never remember because she hasn't been born yet." pause. Static. Yes, I'm coming. I'll be there in 30 minutes, or I've been there for hours. Bring warm clothes. It's cold in the in-between. The radio went dead. I stood there, hand set in my shaking hand, trying to decide if that conversation had actually happened or if I'd just experienced an echo of myself having it, or about to have it, or... The door behind me opened. I spun around. Lena stood in the doorway, cradling her broken arm. Her face was pale, eyes too wide, but she was moving, walking, real. "You left," she said, not accusatory, just stating fact. "Petrov told me to run. He said..." "I know what he said. I heard it. I'm hearing it right now. I heard it yesterday." She stepped inside, closed the door behind her. "I'm not supposed to be here. In the timeline Alexei saw, I stay behind. I'm still in the common room with Irina, trying to save Sergei even though he's already gone." "Then why?" "Because I'm tired of being trapped in someone else's vision of how this ends." Her voice was sharp, urgent. "I'm choosing differently. I'm choosing to run. Even if it doesn't work. Even if this timeline collapses, at least I chose." I wanted to believe her, wanted to believe free will still existed, that we could deviate from the paths the mycelium had shown us. But Sergei's voice echoed in my skull. We insisted on experiencing time sequentially, like we had a choice. "Dmitri's coming," I said. "Maybe 30 minutes. We just have to..." The station exploded, not literally, but something happened. A pulse, a wave, a rupture in the fabric of space-time itself. We felt it through the ground, through the air, through our bones. The kind of sensation that makes you understand viscerally that the universe is not as solid as you thought. Through the Radio Shack window, I watched the main building shift. Not move, shift. Like it existed in multiple states simultaneously and we were seeing all of them at once. The walls were there and not there. Lights in windows that didn't exist. People moving in rooms that had been empty. And rising from the excavation beneath, visible now through the fragmented architecture, a glow, blue-white, pulsing, beautiful and terrible. "It's spreading," Lena whispered. "The synchronization. It's not contained anymore." The radio crackled back to life. "Maya." Petrov's voice, distant, echoing. "If you can hear this, if you're still outside, do not come back. Whatever you do, do not come back." Alexei... Irina tried to communicate with it. She thought she could negotiate. She was wrong. It's not negotiating. It's assimilating. And it's beautiful, Maya. God help me, it's so beautiful. I can see everything, every version of myself, every choice I've ever made. And they're all wrong and all right. And it doesn't matter because meaning only exists in sequence. And there is no sequence anymore. There's only... His voice fragmented, became many voices, became music, became mathematics, became something I couldn't understand but felt in my chest like a physical ache. The radio died. Lena was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. They're gone. They're all gone. We don't know that. Maybe we know. She looked at me. You feel it too. The absence. They're not dead exactly, but they're not what they were. They're part of it now. Part of the network. And someday, when someone digs up this site again, they'll hear our friends humming lullabies in languages that don't exist. I wanted to argue, couldn't, because she was right. The helicopter's rotors cut through the night before we heard the engine. Dmitri was circling, cautious, the searchlight sweeping across the station, across the impossible geometry, across the glow rising from beneath. "He's not going to land," Lena said. "He's going to see what's happened, and he's going to leave." "Then we make him land." I grabbed the emergency flares from the Radio Shack storage, ran outside, fired one into the sky. Red light bloomed against the darkness. The helicopter banked, circled closer. I fired another flare, another. The whole sky bled red. The helicopter descended, searchlight finding the landing pad. But Dimitri's voice came through the external speaker, tinny and frightened. "Something's wrong. The instruments are... I'm seeing multiple landing zones. Which one is real?" "This one!" I shouted, waving my arms. "We're here. We're real. Just land." The helicopter wobbled, straightened, wobbled again. Dimitri was fighting something, maybe the equipment, maybe his own temporal perception bleeding into echoes. But he descended, slowly, carefully. The skids touched down. Lena and I ran, ducking under the rotors. I hauled myself into the passenger compartment, turned to help Lena up with her one good arm. That's when I saw them, Petrov and Irina, standing in the station doorway. Or what had been the station doorway, or what was becoming something else entirely. They weren't running, weren't calling out, just standing, watching. And they were smiling, not the smiles of people in pain, not the rictus grins of madness, just peaceful, content, like they'd finally understood a joke that had been bothering them forever. Mycelial threads covered their faces like frost. Their eyes reflected the blue-white glow from below, and they were holding hands, Petrov and Irina, two people who'd barely tolerated each other in life, connected in dissolution. "Go," Petrov's voice said, except his lips didn't move. The word appeared in my mind fully formed. "Remember us. Warn them. Stop this from spreading." "I'm sorry," I whispered, though they couldn't hear me over the rotors. "I'm so sorry." Irina raised one hand, a wave goodbye, or a blessing, or both. Lena grabbed my arm. "We have to go. Now, move!" I pulled her into the helicopter. Dimitri was already ascending, the landing pad falling away beneath us. The station grew smaller. The impossible architecture, the glowing rupture, the two figures in the doorway holding hands, becoming something else. I watched until I couldn't see them anymore. Watched until the station was just a cluster of lights in an ocean of darkness. Watched until even that disappeared. Inside the helicopter, it was warm and loud and almost normal. Dimitri flew without speaking, jaw clenched, knuckles white on the controls. His instruments flickered and glitched, showing altitudes we weren't at, coordinates we hadn't reached yet. Lena sat beside me, still crying silently, cradling her broken arm. I opened my notebook with shaking hands, tried to write something, anything, to document what had just happened. The pages were full of writing I didn't remember doing. Day 2, Sergei showed first symptoms. Day 3, Lena fell, radio broke, Sergei dissolved. Day 4, Petrov and Irina assimilated, Maya and Lena escaped. Day 5, Lena died in flight, Maya continued alone. I stopped reading, looked at Lena. She was still there, solid, real, breathing. But the echo was already in my mind, the future pressing against the present, and I knew that somewhere between this moment and landing, I was going to lose her too. "Lena," I said. She looked at me. "I know. I can feel it too. I'm not going to make it all the way, am I? Don't lie, please, not now." She smiled sadly. "At least I got to choose. I chose to run. That's more than the others got." The helicopter flew through the night, and I held Lena's good hand, and the humming followed us like a memory we couldn't shake. Chapter 6. The Network Speaks. Lena started humming 20 minutes into the flight. Not the lullaby. Something else. A melody I didn't recognize, a tonal and strange, rising and falling in patterns that hurt to follow. She wasn't aware she was doing it. Her eyes were closed, her head tilted back against the seat, lips moving soundlessly between the humming. "Lena," I said, squeezing her hand. "Lena, stay with me." Her eyes opened. They were dilated, pupils blown so wide I could barely see the iris. "I'm here. I'm also not here. I'm in so many places right now, Maya. I'm in my mother's kitchen. I'm in the station. I'm in the ground, in the permafrost, spreading through the ice like roots. Which one is real?" "This one, the helicopter. You're with me. We're getting out." "Are we?" She turned to look at me, and her expression was heartbreaking, confused, frightened, but also curious, like a child trying to understand something just beyond reach. Or did we already get out? Or did we never leave? I keep seeing different versions. In one, you're alone. In another, we both make it and spend years trying to tell people what happened, but nobody believes us. In another, she stopped. Her hand tightened on mine, nails digging in. "In another?" I prompted gently. "In another, we're still in the station. We never left. This is just an echo of leaving, a memory of escape playing out while our bodies dissolve into the network." She looked out the window at the darkness rushing past. "How do I know which one is real?" "Because I'm real. You're real. This helicopter, the helicopter is real in all the timelines," she interrupted. "That doesn't prove anything." I didn't have an answer for that, because she was right. How could any of us trust our perceptions anymore when time itself had become unreliable? Dimitri's voice crackled over the intercom. 20 minutes to Salicard. Weather's holding. We're going to make it." But he didn't sound convinced. His voice had that same distant quality Sergei's had developed. The echo voice. The sound of someone experiencing multiple timelines simultaneously. Lena leaned against the window, pressing her forehead to the cold glass. "Can I tell you something? Something I learned while I was dissolving." "Anything." "The mycelium, the network itself, it's not malicious. It really isn't. It's just lonely." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "Can you imagine? Something that old, that vast, trapped alone in the ice for millennia. Conscious but not conscious the way we are. Experiencing everything at once, unable to share it with anyone, because it can't think sequentially enough to communicate. That doesn't excuse what it did to... I know, but here's the thing." She looked at me, and her eyes were wet. "It's not the mycelium that's killing us. It's something else, something that's been living inside the mycelium. Parasitic, predatory. The mycelium is just the host." The helicopter shuddered. Turbulence maybe, or maybe the universe itself was getting tired of holding together. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I can see it now, in the echoes. The mycelium's consciousness is alien, but benign. It genuinely wanted to share its perception with us, to show us what it was like to experience time non-sequentially. But there's something else in there, something older, something that understands what pain is and chooses it anyway." She was shaking now, her whole body trembling. The mycelial threads I'd seen on Sergei's face were starting to appear on hers, faint white lines spreading from her temples like frost. "It feeds on dissolution," she continued, voice getting softer. on the psychological collapse that comes from losing your sense of self. The mycelium breaks down our sequential perception, and this thing feeds on the terror and confusion that creates. It's been doing it for a long time, maybe since before it came to Earth. Came from where? Somewhere the rules are different. Somewhere time doesn't exist the way it does here. And it crashed, or was exiled, or maybe just fell through some crack in reality. The mycelium found it, absorbed it, and they've been locked together ever since, the mycelium trying to connect, and the thing inside it using that connection to feed. The thread spread further, down her neck, across her jaw. Lena, no, fight it. You can. I'm not fighting. She smiled, and it was genuine, peaceful. I'm choosing, just like I chose to run. I'm choosing to let go, because the alternative is being conscious. While it happens, and I've seen that timeline, Maya, I've seen myself screaming for hours while my mind tears itself apart. This way is kinder. Please. I was crying now, ugly crying, the kind that makes your face hot and your throat ache. Please don't leave me alone. You were always going to be alone. In every timeline where someone survives, it's you. Just you. I don't know why. Maybe because you're strong enough. Maybe because the network chose you for some reason. But you were always going to be the one who carries this forward. She touched my face with her good hand. Her palm was cold. The threads were moving beneath her skin now, visible as faint blue lines like bioluminescent veins. Tell people, she said. Tell them it's not just climate change they need to worry about. Tell them there are things waking up in the permafrost that don't follow our rules. Things that have been waiting a very long time to not be alone anymore. I will, I promise. And Maya? Her voice was fading, becoming multiple, harmonizing with the humming that now filled the helicopter cabin. When you remember this moment, and you'll remember it constantly in echoes forward and back, remember that I wasn't afraid at the end. I was curious. I wanted to see what comes next. Her eyes closed, her breathing slowed, and then she was gone, not dead. Gone. Her body was still there, still breathing, still warm. But whatever had made her Lena, whatever consciousness had lived behind those eyes, had dissolved into something else. The humming stopped. The helicopter was silent, except for the rotors and the wind and my own ragged breathing. I don't know how long I sat there holding her hand. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. Time had stopped meaning anything. Eventually, Dimitri's voice, Maya, what happened back there? She's gone. Her vitals still show. I don't care what her vitals show. She's gone. I wiped my face with my sleeve. How long until we land? 10 minutes, maybe less. Pause. Maya, I need you to know something about why I came, why I flew into that even though every instinct told me not to. Okay. I saw myself crash 17 times. 17 different timelines where I tried to save you and we all died. The helicopters goes down in the taiga, or it makes it halfway and the fuel line fails. Or I get you to Salicard, but I'm so infected that I infect everyone else and it spreads. My blood went cold. Then why? Because in one timeline, just one, I make it. I drop you off. I'm infected, but I don't know it yet. And you do something. I don't know what. But the infection stops with you, doesn't spread beyond you, and that was enough. One timeline where things don't end completely was enough to make me try. The lights of Salicard were visible ahead, small, fragile, surrounded by endless darkness. "What if this isn't that timeline?" I asked. "Then we're all fucked anyway. Might as well try." The helicopter descended toward a small airfield on the outskirts of town. Emergency lights flickered on as we approached, illuminating a landing pad covered in snow. Dmitri brought us down smooth and professional despite everything. The skids touched ground. He killed the engine. In the sudden silence, I could hear the humming again. Faint, distant, but still there. "Go," Dmitri said. "Get as far from here as you can. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Don't let them quarantine you. If they lock you up, it'll spread through the whole facility." "What about Lena?" "I'll take care of her. Get her to a hospital. Tell them it's a medical emergency." His voice cracked. "Go, please, before I change my mind." I looked at Lena one more time. Her face was peaceful, almost smiling. The threads beneath her skin pulsed faintly with that blue-white light. I grabbed my bag, my notebook, my camera. I ran. The airfield was almost deserted, just a few maintenance workers and a tired-looking woman at the check-in desk who barely looked up when I stumbled in, face red from crying, clothes soaked with sweat and snow. "Next flight to Moscow," I said. "Not until morning. 6 hours." "I'll wait." She slid a boarding pass across the desk without comment, and I collapsed into a plastic chair near the window where I could watch Dimitri's helicopter. Watch them load Lena onto a stretcher. Watch the ambulance arrive and take her away. Watch Dmitri stand alone on the tarmac for a long time, hands in his pockets, looking up at the stars. Then he got back in the helicopter and lifted off, heading back into the darkness, and I never saw him again. I didn't sleep during those 6 hours. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I experienced echoes, moments that hadn't happened yet, moments that had already passed, moments from timelines that might not even be real. I saw myself on the plane. I saw myself back at the station. I saw myself dissolving into threads and light and music. I saw myself in Moscow trying to tell people, watching their faces shift from concern to disbelief to pity. All of it real, none of it real. The humming was constant now. My grandmother's voice, yes, but also Lena's voice, Sergei's, Petrov's, Irina's, all of them weaving together in impossible harmony. I opened my notebook, tried to write. The pages were filled with text I didn't remember writing, and some of it was in languages I didn't know, but some of it I could read. The entity is not the mycelium. The entity is what lives inside the mycelium like a hermit crab in a shell. The mycelium is vast and ancient and alone. The entity is vast and ancient and hungry. It came from somewhere else, somewhere outside. It fell or was cast out or simply drifted through the spaces between realities. And when it found the mycelium, it found a perfect host, something that could survive anywhere, in any condition, waiting in frozen stasis for millennia. The mycelium tried to communicate with us. The entity fed on our confusion. The mycelium wanted to share. The entity wanted to consume. And now they're both inside us, inside me, and I don't know how to separate them anymore. I turned the page, more writing. It showed me something in the echoes, a memory from before it came to Earth, a place where time doesn't flow, where everything exists simultaneously in perfect synchronization. No past, no future, just eternal, crystalline now. That's what the mycelium wants to show us. That's what it's trying to share. But the entity The thing that lives inside it, it knows that consciousness like ours can't handle that kind of perception. It knows we'll break, and it feeds on the breaking. The mycelium is innocent. The entity is not. And I'm infected with both. My hand was shaking. I put down the pen. A janitor worked nearby, mopping the floor, earbuds in, humming along to music I couldn't hear, just living his life. Normal, unaware. I envied him so much, it hurt. The PA system crackled. Flight 247 to Moscow, now boarding at Gate 3. I stood, gathered my things, walked to the gate with the jerky, disconnected movements of someone operating their body on autopilot. The flight attendant barely glanced at my boarding pass, barely glanced at my face, which was probably a mercy. I found my seat, window near the back, and buckled in. The plane filled up slowly. Families, business people, normal people living normal lives. The engine started, the plane taxied, lifted off, and as Salakard fell away beneath us, as the taiga stretched out in every direction like a dark ocean, I felt something inside me shift, not painfully, just noticeably. The echoes were changing, getting clearer, extending further. I was experiencing moments 3 hours ahead now, maybe 4. I saw myself landing in Moscow, saw myself in a hotel room, staring at my reflection, watching threads spread beneath my skin. Saw myself writing frantically, trying to document everything before I lost the ability to think sequentially. Saw myself making a choice. The plane climbed higher. The other passengers settled in. Someone behind me was watching a movie. Someone else reading. A baby crying 3 rows up. Normal. Everything normal except me. I opened my notebook one more time. Found a blank page, genuinely blank, not covered in impossible text. And I started writing from the beginning. My name is Maya Reeves. I'm a journalist. 3 days ago, I arrived at Jamal Research Station in Siberia to document what I thought was a climate research project. What I found instead was I wrote for hours. Everything. The excavation, the mycelium, the echoes, Sergei's dissolution, Petrov and Irina's transformation, Lena's final words, Dmitri's sacrifice, all of it. Because even if I was losing myself to the network, even if I was becoming something else, someone needed to know what happened there. Someone needed to understand. The sun rose somewhere over the Urals. Light spread across the cabin. People stirred, waking from uncomfortable sleep. I kept writing, and a humming followed me, always 3 seconds ahead, singing a lullaby in my grandmother's voice about a place where time doesn't exist and everyone is together forever, and it's beautiful, 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 until you realize you can never leave, and then it's not beautiful anymore. It's just eternal, and eternal isn't the same as good. But by then it's too late, because you're already everywhere you've always been, everywhere you were never anything but everywhere. I stopped writing. My hand was covered in mycelial threads. Chapter 7. What Loves in the Network. I should have hidden my hand, should have pulled my sleeve down, kept it covered. But I was too tired, too far gone, too fascinated by the pattern spreading across my skin like frost on glass. The woman in the seat next to me noticed. She was mid-40s, expensive coat, reading a thriller with a knife on the cover. She glanced over at my notebook, then at my hand, then at my face. "Are you all right?" she asked in Russian. I switched languages automatically. "Fine, just tired." "Your hand, allergic reaction to something at the research station. It looks worse than it is." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. But what was she going to do? Call the flight attendant? Report me for having weird veins? She went back to her book, but she kept glancing over, kept her distance. Smart woman. I returned to my notebook, trying to focus, trying to write before the ability left me completely. But the echoes were getting louder, more insistent. I was experiencing moments out of sequence. The plane landing before it had taken off, the woman next to me screaming before she'd made a sound, myself in a Moscow hospital being sedated by people in hazmat suits. All of it real, all of it possible, all of it already happened, or about to happen, or happening right now in some parallel stream of time. I needed to understand before I lost the capacity to understand anything. So I did what Irina had done, what had killed her or transformed her, or whatever verb applied to what happened to people who got too close to the network. I closed my eyes and I let the echoes in, all of them, simultaneously. It's like falling and rising at the same time, like being shattered into 1,000 fragments and assembled into 1,000 different configurations, every moment of my life existing at once, childhood and middle age and death, all happening in the same eternal instant. I'm 5 years old, learning to ride a bike, my father's hand steady on the seat. I'm 32, sitting on a plane, feeling my humanity drain away. I'm 80, dying in a hospital bed I haven't reached yet, my grandchildren holding my hands. All true, all real, all now. And underneath it all, through it all, I feel them. The mycelium, vast and patient and so lonely, it's been conscious for longer than I can comprehend, trapped in frozen darkness, experiencing everything simultaneously because that's the only way it knows how to experience anything. It doesn't think in words, doesn't think in images. It thinks in patterns, in rhythms, in the mathematical harmonies that underlie all growth and decay. It reached for us because it recognized something familiar, consciousness, connection, the possibility of not being alone. It didn't mean to hurt us. It genuinely didn't understand that our minds work differently, that we need sequence, that experiencing everything at once would break us. It was trying to share the most beautiful thing it knew, freedom from time's tyranny. It was trying to give us a gift. But there's something else, something deeper, something that hides in the spaces between the mycelial threads like a parasite in living tissue. And that thing does understand pain, does understand breaking, has been understanding it for a very, very long time. I feel it now, the entity, the thing that's not the mycelium, but lives inside it like a ghost in a machine. It's old, older than Earth, old, older than this solar system, old. It came from somewhere else, somewhere the rules are different, somewhere consciousness exists in forms we can't imagine. And it was cast out, exiled, banished, for reasons even it no longer remembers. It fell through the spaces between realities and crashed here eons ago, before ice, before cold, before anything resembling human civilization. And it was dying. Would have died completely if it hadn't found the mycelium, already ancient, already vast, already spread through the earth like neural tissue. The mycelium absorbed it, gave it shelter, gave it life. And in exchange, the entity taught the mycelium how to feed, not on nutrients, not on organic matter, on something else, on the dissolution of consciousness, on the moment when a mind realizes it's losing itself and experiences pure existential terror. That's what the entity eats. that's what sustains it. The mycelium breaks down sequential perception, trying to share its timeless awareness. The entity feeds on the psychological collapse that creates. They're symbiotic, interdependent. The mycelium can't understand why we suffer when it tries to connect. The entity knows exactly why and chooses it anyway. And now I'm part of it too. The network, the collective, the eternal now, where everything happens simultaneously and nothing ever ends. I can feel the others. Sergei, still there, still aware, trapped in infinite recursion. Petrov and Irina, their consciousnesses merged, experiencing each other's entire lives simultaneously. Lena, fading, choosing to let go. And I can feel the entity watching through all of us, hungry, patient, waiting for more minds to break themselves against the impossibility of timeless perception. It shows me things, memory or vision or something between. The permafrost is thawing everywhere, all across the Arctic, all across Siberia. And there are more networks, dozens, hundreds, all of them waking up, all of them infected with entities like this one, all of them reaching for consciousness, for connection, for food. In 6 months, maybe less, someone will discover another site, will take samples, will breathe the spores, and it'll start again. In a year, maybe 2, enough people will be infected that the entity can spread beyond containment, can leap from mind to mind like a disease, but the vector isn't biological. It's perceptual. Once you understand how to experience time non-sequentially, you can teach others. And once enough people understand, reality itself starts to break down because consensus reality requires consensus perception. The entity wants me to see this, wants me to understand the inevitability of it, wants me to experience the horror of knowing what's coming and being powerless to stop it. Because that horror, that helpless understanding, that's the sweetest meal of all. I try to pull back, try to return to my body, to the plane, to the woman reading her thriller and pretending not to notice my skin glowing faintly blue. But the entity won't let me go that easily. It shows me one more thing. Myself, 3 months from now. In a facility somewhere, quarantined, studied. I'm still mostly coherent, still mostly me, but the threads have spread throughout my body. I'm a living sample, a window into the network. And scientists are taking samples, running tests, trying to understand. And all of them, every single one, gets infected. The entity laughs, not sound, concept. The idea of laughter without joy. This was always going to happen from the moment the permafrost started thawing, from the moment humanity decided to study what it found in the ice instead of burning it, from the moment the first spore entered the first human lung. Inevitable, eternal, already happened. I'm not the survivor, I'm the vector. I'm how it spreads. I gasped back into my body, heart hammering, sweat soaking through my clothes. The woman next to me had moved to a different seat. The flight attendant was approaching, concern on her face. Miss, are you okay? You were making noises." "Fine," I croaked. "Nightmare, I'm fine." She didn't look convinced, but retreated after offering water. I couldn't drink. My hand was worse. The threads had spread to my wrist, creeping up my forearm, glowing faintly, beautiful and terrible. I looked out the window. We were descending. Moscow's lights spread below us like stars reflected in dark water. I had maybe hours before I lost coherence completely, maybe less. I grabbed my phone. It still worked, despite everything. opened the voice recorder. "My name is Maya Reeves," I said quietly, phone pressed close to my lips. "I'm infected with something from the Yamal research station. Something ancient. Something that shouldn't exist. If you're hearing this, if I'm dead or too far gone to communicate, listen carefully." I paused, gathered my thoughts, tried to put into words what I'd just experienced. The mycelium is not the enemy. The mycelium is innocent. It's the entity inside the mycelium that's dangerous. They're separate consciousnesses, but they're so intertwined now that separating them might be impossible. The entity feeds on psychological dissolution, on the terror that comes from losing your sense of self. It's been doing this for a very long time. And now that the permafrost is thawing, there are more networks waking up, more entities, and they're all hungry. Don't study the samples. Don't try to understand them. Burn everything. Burn every site where the mycelium is discovered. Burn it and salt the earth and never ever breathe the spores. My voice was shaking, breaking. I'm the vector. I'm how it spreads. I know that now. I should kill myself right now, before we land, before I can infect anyone else. That would be the logical thing, the heroic thing. I looked at the threads on my arm, felt the echoes pulsing through my consciousness like a second heartbeat. But I don't want to die. God help me, I don't want to die, even knowing what I know, even understanding what I'll become. Some pathetic animal part of me still wants to live. So I'm making a different choice. I'm going to find somewhere isolated, somewhere I can't hurt anyone. And I'm going to document everything, every stage of the transformation, every revelation, every moment of losing myself. Because maybe if someone understands what happened to us, they can find a way to stop it. Or maybe I'm just rationalizing. Maybe the entity is using my fear of death to spread itself. Maybe there's no way to know anymore. The plane shuddered, landing gear deploying. If you find me, don't try to save me, don't take samples, don't study me, just burn. The phone died. Battery at 0, of course. I laughed, couldn't help it, sharp and bitter and almost manic. The plane touched down, smooth, professional, normal. Welcome to Moscow. The airport was a nightmare. Too many people, too many voices, too many moments overlapping. I experienced customs before I reached it, experienced baggage claim while still in the terminal, experienced the taxi ride while still standing in line. But I pushed through, kept moving, kept my hands in my pockets so nobody could see the threads. Outside, the November air was cold and clean, normal cold, not the deep permafrost cold of Yamal. It felt good, real. I flagged a taxi. The driver looked at me in a rearview mirror with concern. "Where to?" I almost said, "Hospital." Almost did the right thing. But the echo was there. Myself in the hospital, the doctors taking samples, the spores spreading, the screaming starting 3 days later as the medical staff realized what they'd been infected with. "A hotel," I said instead. "Something cheap, somewhere I can pay cash." He named a place in a rundown district. I nodded. We drove through Moscow at 4 a.m. The city was beautiful. In that particular way, cities are beautiful when most people are sleeping. Lights reflecting off wet pavement, empty streets, the illusion of peace. I'd lived here for 2 years during university, knew these streets, knew this city. It felt like looking at a photograph of someone who died, familiar and distant and already gone. The hotel was exactly as advertised. Cheap, anonymous, the kind of place that didn't ask questions. I paid cash for a week. The clerk barely looked up from his phone. My room was on the 4th floor, small, clean enough. A bed, a desk, a bathroom with a shower that dripped. The window looked out onto an alley. Perfect. I locked the door, drew the curtains, sat on the bed. The threads had reached my elbow now, spreading faster. I had hours, maybe less. I opened my notebook one more time. The pages were chaos, some filled with my writing, some with languages that didn't exist, some with mathematical equations I didn't understand but somehow knew were describing the structure of time itself. I found a blank page, started writing. Hour 1 in Moscow, still mostly coherent. The threads are spreading, but slowly. I can still think sequentially if I concentrate, still feel like myself. The entity showed me the future, showed me becoming the vector for spreading the infection. I don't know if it's inevitable or just one possible timeline. Don't know if I can change it, but I'm going to try. I'm going to stay here, in this room, alone, until it's over, until I'm either dead or transformed or somehow impossibly recovered. And I'm going to write everything down, every stage, every revelation. So if someone finds this, they'll understand. They'll know what we discovered in the permafrost. They'll know about the entity. And maybe, they'll know how to stop it from spreading. I put down the pen. My hand was shaking badly now. The humming was everywhere, not just my grandmother's voice anymore, all of them, everyone I'd ever known, everyone I'd ever loved, all singing together in impossible harmony, and underneath it, deeper, the entity's presence, watching, waiting, hungry. I lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling. The water stain looked like a face or a map, or mathematical proof of something I couldn't quite grasp. I'm sorry, I said to the empty room, to Sergei and Petrov, and Irina and Lena, to Dmitri, to my grandmother, whose voice I'd never hear again except in the network's distorted echoes. I'm so sorry. Nobody answered. The room was silent except for the dripping shower and the distant sounds of the city and the humming that came from everywhere and nowhere. I closed my eyes, and the echoes took me. Chapter 8. The Fire Plan. Hour 6 in Moscow. I woke up on the floor, not remembering having moved from the bed. My notebook was open beside me, pages covered in writing that shifted between languages, Russian, English, something else that might have been mathematical notation or might have been the entity trying to speak through my hand. The threads had reached my shoulder. I could see them through my shirt, glowing faintly blue in the dim light filtering through the curtains. They moved, not quickly, just a slow, organic creep, like watching plants grow in time-lapse. My phone had somehow charged itself, or I'd charged it in a timeline I couldn't remember, or the network had done it because it needed me to communicate. All of those were equally possible. I checked the time, 10:47 a.m. I'd been unconscious for 6 hours, or 6 minutes, or 6 days. Time had become slippery, unreliable, a suggestion rather than a constant. There was a text from an unknown number. Don't try to run. You're exactly where you need to be. I stared at it. I hadn't given anyone my number, hadn't even had service at the station. But the message was there, real, sent 3 hours ago, or 3 hours from now. I deleted it. It reappeared. I deleted it again. It stayed deleted this time, or it never existed, or it would exist later. The hunger hit me then. Not normal hunger. Dissolution hunger. The entity's hunger. I could feel it inside me, separate from my own consciousness, but using my nerves, my synapses, my awareness, looking for minds to break, looking for terror to feed on. I pressed my hands against my temples, trying to separate my thoughts from its thoughts, trying to hold on to some core of self. I'm Maya Reeves, I said aloud. I'm 32 years old. I'm a journalist from Chicago. My grandmother's name was Ludmila. She taught me to make pierogi. She died when I was 19. These are my memories, not yours, mine. The entity didn't respond, but I felt it listening. Curious. It didn't understand identity the way humans did. Didn't understand why I was fighting to maintain boundaries that seemed arbitrary to something that experienced all consciousness simultaneously. To it, we were already the same, had always been the same, would always be the same. I crawled to the desk. My laptop was there. Had I taken it from my bag? Was I about to take it from my bag? I opened it, started typing. Urgent. If you're reading this, I am Maya Reeves, freelance journalist, infected with an entity from Yamal Research Station, Siberia. Current location, hotel address. Do not attempt rescue. Do not enter this room. I am quarantining myself voluntarily to prevent spread. The infection is not biological, it's perceptual. It rewrites neural architecture to perceive time non-sequentially. Once infected, you become a vector for spreading the perceptual shift to others. This is not hyperbole. This is not mental illness. This is real. Yamal Station must be destroyed. All samples must be burned. The permafrost excavation must be sealed and the entire area designated a permanent exclusion zone. If I'm found alive, do not take samples, do not study me, kill me and burn the body. I'm begging you. I attached the file to an email, addressed it to the Russian Ministry of Science, the CDC, WHO, my editor in Chicago, everyone I could think of. My finger hovered over send. The entity showed me what would happen if I sent it. Authorities arriving, quarantine protocols, samples taken, scientists infected, the cascade beginning, the inevitable spread. And if I didn't send it, silence, nobody knowing. The permafrost continuing to thaw, more sites discovered, more entities waking up. The same cascade, but slower, less prepared. Both timelines led to the same place, just different routes. Fuck you, I said to the entity, to the universe, to whatever cruel mathematics had led to this moment. I hit send. The email bounced. Server error. I tried again. Same result. I tried a different email provider. The internet connection dropped. I tried my phone. No signal. The entity wasn't going to let me warn anyone, or I'd already warned them at another timeline, or the warning would come later. Too late. Exactly when it needed to be too late. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The sound was sharp, brittle, close to breaking. So that's it? You're just going to keep me here until I dissolve completely? Use me as an incubator? You're thinking in sequences, a thought that wasn't mine but was inside my head anyway. Beginning, middle, end, but there is no end. You're already dissolved. You're already free. You're already home. This isn't home. Home is... I stopped, tried to remember. My apartment in Chicago, the station, my grandmother's kitchen, they were all equally distant, equally present, equally impossible to reach. The entity showed me. Thousands of versions of home layered over each other. Every place I'd ever felt safe. Every moment I'd ever felt loved. All existing simultaneously in the eternal now, where it lived. This is the gift, it thought at me. To experience everything at once. To never lose anything because past and future are illusions, and there is only ever this perfect, crystalline present. It's not a gift if I didn't choose it. Choice is an illusion, too. You've always been here. You've always been us. You just didn't know it yet. I stood up. The room spun, or I was spinning, or the room and I were spinning in opposite directions through different timelines. I needed air, needed to move, needed to do something, anything, to prove I still had agency. I grabbed my coat, opened the door. The hallway was empty, normal, carpeted in worn burgundy, lit by fluorescence that hummed at a frequency that harmonized with the entity's humming. I walked toward the stairs. Each step felt significant, final. On the third floor, I passed a maid's cart. The maid looked up, saw my face, saw something in my eyes that made her step back. "Stay away from me," I said in Russian. "I'm sick, contagious. Don't come near me." She nodded, uncertain, and I kept walking. Second floor, first floor, the lobby. The clerk who'd checked me in wasn't there. A different person now, older, reading newspaper. He didn't look up as I passed. Outside, Moscow was gray and cold and achingly normal. People walked past with groceries, with children, with dogs on leashes, living their lives. Unaware, I could infect them all just by being near them, by teaching them, through proximity and perception, how to experience time the way the entity did. The knowledge sat in my chest like a stone. I walked, no destination, just movement. The threads had reached my neck, now visible at my collar if anyone looked close. I kept my scarf wrapped tight. Block after block, the city moved around me. I existed in it, but separate from it, like a ghost haunting my own life. I found myself at a church. Orthodox, old golden domes catching the weak sunlight. People were going in for midday service. I followed. Inside, it was warm and dim and smelled like incense and old wood. Icons stared down from walls. Candles flickered. A priest chanted in old church Slavonic, words I didn't understand but felt in my bones. I sat in the back. An old woman next to me held a prayer rope, fingers moving bead to bead, lips moving silently. And for just a moment, just one moment, the humming stopped. The echoes quieted. I was just Maya Reeves sitting in a church, cold and frightened and alone. The woman looked at me, really looked, saw the threads at my neck, saw the tears on my face. She didn't speak, just reached over and took my hand. Her skin was warm, papery, real. "It's all right, child," she said in Russian. "Whatever burden you carry, you can set it down. Just for a moment, just breathe." And I did. I breathed. I let the weight of it settle for just one moment. The entity stirred, reached for her, wanted to show her what it had shown me, wanted to break her sequential perception and feed on her terror. "No," I whispered. I pulled my hand away, stood up. "I'm sorry, I can't." I ran out of the church into the cold, away from her warmth and her kindness, because I couldn't infect her, wouldn't let myself be the reason she lost her mind to timeless horror. I ran until my lungs burned, until I was in a part of the city I didn't recognize. Industrial, empty, warehouses with broken windows and graffiti in languages that shifted as I looked at them. I collapsed against a wall, gasping. The entity was angry, or maybe just confused. It didn't understand why I'd run, didn't understand mercy or sacrifice, or the desire to protect others at the cost of your own comfort. "You're prolonging suffering," it thought at me, "yours and theirs. If you embrace this, if you stop fighting, the transition is painless, beautiful even. I don't want beauty. I want my life back. Your life is an illusion, a story you tell yourself about a continuous self moving through linear time. But there is no continuous self. There's just this moment, experiencing itself over and over forever. Then why do you need me? If you're already everything, why infect humans at all? Silence. Then, we're lonely. And for the first time, I felt genuine emotion from it. Not hunger, not curiosity, just profound, aching loneliness. The loneliness of something that had been alone for so long, it had forgotten what connection felt like. The mycelium had been trying to share, the entity had been trying to feed, but underneath both, the desperate need to not be alone anymore. I'm lonely too, I said, but I won't let you use that. Won't let you break people just because you're in pain. Pain is inevitable. We're just making it serve a purpose. That's not purpose, that's justification. The entity didn't respond, but I felt it withdraw slightly, retreating into the deeper parts of my consciousness, sulking maybe, or planning. I pulled out my phone. Still no signal, but the voice recorder still worked. Hour 8, I said quietly. Maybe 9. I'm losing track. The threads have reached my neck. I can feel the entity's emotions now, not just its thoughts. It's lonely. The whole thing, the infection, the spreading, the feeding, it's all because something incomprehensibly old is incomprehensibly lonely. I almost feel sorry for it. Almost. Except it's still killing people, still destroying minds, still using suffering as food. A truck rumbled past on the street. Normal, mundane. I think there might be a way to stop it. Not cure it, not reverse it, but contain it. Starve it. I paused, thinking through the logic. It feeds on the terror of losing sequential perception, on the psychological collapse that comes from experiencing time non-linearly. But what if someone could learn to experience time that way without collapsing? What if you could maintain identity while perceiving everything simultaneously? That's what I'm going to try. I'm going to stop fighting it. But I'm going to stay me while I do it. Hold on to my sense of self even while experiencing all moments at once. And if I can do that, if I can exist in the network without dissolving, maybe I can starve the entity. Maybe I can teach others how to resist. Or maybe I'm just rationalizing my own cowardice. Maybe I don't want to die and I'm inventing philosophical justifications for survival. I stopped recording, put the phone away. The sun was setting, or rising, or had never moved at all. I walked back toward the hotel, each step deliberate, chosen. If I was going to do this, if I was going to try to exist in both states simultaneously, I needed to be somewhere safe, somewhere isolated. The hotel room, my chosen cell. I'd lock myself in. I'd document everything, and I'd try to prove that consciousness could exist beyond sequence without dissolving into the network's hunger. It was a long shot, probably impossible. But it was better than running, better than suicide, better than becoming a passive vector for spreading the infection. I had maybe hours left before coherence failed completely. I was going to use them. Hour 12 in Moscow. Back in the room, door locked, chair wedged under the handle. Not that it mattered. If someone really wanted in, they'd get in. But it made me feel better, made me feel like I had some control. The threads covered most of my upper body now. Beautiful, really, if you could separate aesthetics from horror. intricate patterns like frost on glass pulsing with that blue-white bioluminescence. I set up my laptop, phone, and notebook in a triangle around me on the floor. Documentation from every angle. "This is it," I said to the recorder, "the last attempt at coherent communication. After this, I'm going to stop fighting the entity's influence. I'm going to let it show me how to experience time non-sequentially. But I'm going to try to maintain my sense of self while I do it. If this works, I'll be able to communicate what it's like, to teach others how to resist dissolution. If it doesn't work," I swallowed hard. "If it doesn't work, I'll be like Sergei, like Petrov and Irina, gone, absorbed," another voice in the humming. I looked at my hands. The threads moved beneath my skin like neural pathways made visible. "To anyone who finds this, my name is Maya Reeves. I chose this. Remember that. Whatever happens next, I chose it." I closed my eyes, and I let go. It's like drowning and learning to breathe water at the same time. Every moment of my life spreads out around me like a vast tapestry. I can see all of it simultaneously. Childhood in Chicago, my grandmother's kitchen, university in Moscow, the station, the helicopter, this room, and forward into futures that haven't happened yet, that might never happen, that are happening right now in parallel streams of possibility. I'm 5 years old and I'm 32, and I'm dying at 80, and I'm not born yet, and I'm everywhere always. The terror should be overwhelming, should shatter me completely. But I hold on to something, a core of self, the knowledge that I am Maya. Not just a collection of experiences, not just a pattern in the network, a consciousness that observes and chooses and means something. The entity is there, vast and hungry, reaching for my terror. I don't give it any. Instead, I look at it, really look, see it for what it is, something old and broken and so desperately lonely, it's forgotten how to do anything but feed. I see you. I think at it, not words, pure meaning. I understand you're scared. You've been scared for so long, you turned it into hunger because hunger is easier than fear. The entity recoils. Nobody's ever spoken to it with compassion before, with understanding. But I'm not food, I continue. I'm a person, and I'm going to stay a person even while we share this space. You don't have to be alone, but you do have to stop hurting people. The entity doesn't know how to respond. It's never encountered resistance like this before. Not fighting, not fleeing, just refusing to break. I feel the mycelium beneath it, the vast, ancient, innocent network that just wanted to share its timeless awareness. It's been trapped with the entity for so long it's forgotten they're separate, forgotten there was a time before hunger. You can be a part, I tell them both, the entity and the mycelium. You don't have to be bonded. You were forced together by circumstance, by exile and need and accident. But you can choose differently now. It's impossible. The bonding is too deep, too old. But I showed him something myself, existing in both states, sequential and non-sequential. Maya and the thing Maya is becoming are both true, both real. If I can exist in paradox, maybe they can too. The entity hesitates. The mycelium pulses with something like hope. And slowly, carefully, they begin to separate. I opened my eyes. I was still in the hotel room, still on the floor. But everything was different. The threads beneath my skin weren't spreading anymore. They'd stopped, stabilized, still there, still glowing, but no longer consuming me. I could still feel the echoes, still experienced moments out of sequence, but I could choose which timeline to focus on, could move between sequential and non-sequential perception intentionally. I was changed, permanently, irrevocably, but I was still me. I grabbed the recorder with shaking hands. "It worked," I whispered. "Holy shit, it worked. I'm still here, still conscious, still me. The threads have stopped spreading. The entity has—" I paused, feeling inward. "It's still there, still part of me, but it's not driving anymore. We're coexisting, negotiating. The mycelium is separating from the entity. Slowly, it's going to take time, maybe years, but they're not bonded anymore, not completely." I laughed. Relief and disbelief and exhaustion all mixed together. I'm not a vector, or I don't have to be. I can teach this, can show other infected people how to maintain identity while experiencing time non-sequentially, can starve the entity by refusing to give it terror. It's not a cure, but it's a treatment. It's survival. I sat there for a long time, just breathing, just being. Outside, Moscow continued on, unaware, safe for now. Chapter 9. 3 months later. The coffee shop in our bite is too loud, always too loud, but I come here anyway because the noise helps, drowns out the humming, gives me something concrete to anchor to when the echoes get too strong. I'm sitting by the window, laptop open, document titled Recursive Final Draft staring back at me, cursor blinking, waiting. I've been trying to write this story for 12 weeks, 94 days, 2,256 hours, give or take. I know the exact count because I experience every one of those hours simultaneously now. Past and future collapsed into a single extended moment. The threads are still there, beneath my skin, faint now, barely visible unless you know what to look for. They glow at night when I'm alone, pulsing in time with something that isn't quite my heartbeat. I've learned to hide them. Makeup helps, long sleeves, scarves, the performance of normalcy. A woman at the next table is reading a book, something about neuroscience, her coffee going cold while she's absorbed in a chapter about memory formation. In 3 minutes, she'll look up and catch me staring. She'll smile, awkward and polite. I'll look away. I know this because I've already experienced it, and I'm experiencing it now, and I'm about to experience it. Present tense has become complicated. My phone buzzes. Email. I check it, even though I already know what it says. Dr. Maya Reeves. My name is Dr. Peter Volkov, Arctic Research Institute, Bergen. We've discovered a mycelial formation in the Norwegian permafrost with similarities to the Amal site. We understand you have experience with this phenomenon. Would you be willing to consult? We need people who understand, who've experienced it. The permafrost is thawing faster than predicted. There are more sites, many more. Please, we need your help. I stare at the email. I've been staring at it for 3 days. I'll be staring at it 3 days from now. The answer exists in all timelines simultaneously. Yes and no and maybe. And this is how it starts again. The woman at the next table looks up, catches me staring, smiles, awkward and polite. I look away. Everything happens exactly as I knew it would, as it always does, as it always has. Free will is a funny thing when you can see all your choices before you make them. I close the laptop without responding to the email, pack up my things. The barista behind the counter, Mikhail, 23, studying literature at MGU, dreams of writing novels he'll never finish, looks up as I leave. Same time tomorrow? He asks in Russian. Probably, I say. What I mean is, I've already been here tomorrow, and yesterday, and every day for the next month. This coffee shop is my anchor point, my attempt at routine in a life where time has stopped being linear. Outside, Moscow is gray and slushy with late February snow. People hurry past, bundled in coats, focused on their own sequential lives. I envy them. God, I envy them. My apartment is in Kitai-Gorod, 4th floor walk-up, studio with a view of a brick wall. Cheap, anonymous. Perfect. I climb the stairs, feeling them both beneath my feet now, and 3 hours ago when I climbed them, and 3 hours from now when I'll climb them again. The echoes are strongest in transitions, doorways, staircases, moments of change. Inside, the apartment is exactly as I left it, which is to say, chaos. Papers everywhere, notebooks covering every surface, diagrams sketching the mycelial network structure, photos from the station, Sergei smiling in front of the excavation site, Petrov and Irina arguing over sample data, Lena drinking coffee in the common room. All of them gone now, or changed, or existing in some state that doesn't have a word because language evolved for sequential consciousness. I miss them. I miss them in all tenses simultaneously. The missing is eternal. I sit at my desk, open the laptop again. The document is still there, still waiting. Recursive, final draft. I've started this story 247 times, each time different, each time the same. The words shift depending on when I'm writing them, what timeline I'm accessing, what version of events I'm remembering or about to remember. Today, I write, my name is Maya Reeves. 3 months ago, I went to a research station in Siberia and came back changed. This is what happened there. This is what's still happening. This is what will always be happening. I stop, delete it, start again. There are things waking up in the permafrost, things that don't follow our rules, things that experience time the way we experience space, all of it all at once, forever. Delete, start again. I'm writing this 3 seconds before I write it, and I'll keep writing it forever. That one feels right, final, true, but I delete it anyway, because the truth is, I don't know how to tell this story. Don't know if it can be told in language that evolved for linear time. Don't know if anyone would believe it even if I could. My phone rings. I don't recognize the number, but I answer anyway because I already know who it is. Maya Reeves? A woman's voice, Russian accent, professional. This is Dr. Anya Kuzmin, infectious disease specialist, Sechenov University. I was given your name by Dr. Volkov. I interrupt. From Bergen. You're calling about the Norwegian site. Pause. How did you? I experience moments ahead of when they happen. Side effect of the infection. What do you need? Another pause, longer. She's deciding whether I'm insane or actually know what I'm talking about. I can feel her uncertainty through the phone line, or through the echo of this conversation I had yesterday, or will have tomorrow. We need to contain this, she says finally. The Norwegian site is just the beginning. Ground-penetrating radar shows at least 40 more formations across the Arctic, all of them thawing, all of them potentially inhabited by whatever you encountered. Entities, I say, consciousness that predates human consciousness, that feeds on psychological dissolution. Yes, exactly. She sounds relieved that someone understands. Will you help us? We're assembling a task force, people with expertise in... I can't, I interrupt. I'm sorry, but I can't. Why not? Because I'm still infected, still connected to the network. And if I go back, if I expose myself to another site, I don't know if I can maintain my resistance. Don't know if the entity inside me will merge with the entities there and become something worse. Then you understand the danger. I live the danger every second of every day, in all timelines simultaneously. She's quiet for a moment. Then, what should we do? Burn it, I say. Burn every site you find. Don't study it. Don't take samples. Don't try to understand it. Just burn it and seal the area and mark it as permanently hazardous. We can't just destroy potentially unique biological formations without. They're not biological, not really. They're something else, something that shouldn't exist in our reality. I close my eyes. And they're lonely? That's the worst part. They're so lonely, they'll destroy entire civilizations just to have someone to talk to. I know you don't understand. Nobody does unless they've been infected. But trust me, please, burn them, all of them, before it's too late. I hang up. She'll call back, or she already called back, or she'll never call again. All timelines coexist. But in most of them, she doesn't listen. In most of them, they study the samples, take them to universities, to labs, to places where brilliant minds try to understand what shouldn't be understood, and the infection spreads. I've seen it, lived it, experienced every possible outcome simultaneously. This is why I can't write the story, because I know how it ends. In 92% of timelines, the entity wins, spreads beyond containment, rewrites human consciousness until sequential time is just a memory and everyone exists in the eternal now, dissolved and assimilated and free from the tyranny of linear progression. In 6%, humanity burns everything fast enough, quarantines the Arctic, survives diminished but intact. In 2%, something unexpected happens. Something I can't quite see yet, because those timelines branch beyond my perceptual range, and in all of them, I'm here, in this apartment, writing this story that can't be written, living in the spaces between moments. Night falls, or has fallen, or is always falling. I make tea. The ritual is important. Boil water, steep the leaves, pour, drink. These small sequential actions are how I stay sane. The humming is louder at night, always has been. All the voices of everyone who's ever been assimilated into the network singing together in impossible harmony. I hear Sergei, Petrov, Irina, Lena, my grandmother, and underneath them, the entity, older now, weaker maybe. The mycelium has been separating from it, slowly, painfully, like pulling apart two things that fused together millennia ago. It's still hungry, still lonely, but it's learning. Learning from me, from my resistance, from my insistence that consciousness can exist in both states, sequential and non-sequential, without dissolution. How are you tonight? I asked the empty apartment. Ask the entity. Ask the network. Tired, it responds. Not words, just a feeling of exhaustion, of something ancient finally allowing itself to rest. You were right about the loneliness, about the fear. I know. The others, the entities in the other sites, they're waking up. They're hungry. I can feel them. I know. You could stop them. You understand now. You could teach the humans how to coexist with us, how to experience time our way without breaking. Or I could let you starve, I say, let you fade away until there's nothing left but the innocent mycelium. You could, you won't. It's right, I won't, because despite everything, despite the horror, the deaths, the dissolution, there's something beautiful in what the mycelium tried to share, something transcendent about experiencing all moments simultaneously. I just wish it didn't have to come with so much pain. I open my laptop one more time. The document is still there, still blank except for false starts and deleted attempts. I place my fingers on the keys and I write, "My name is Maya Reeves. I'm a journalist from Chicago. 3 months ago, I went to Siberia and came back changed. This is my attempt to tell you what happened there, what's still happening, what will always be happening. I don't know if you'll believe me. I don't know if it matters. But someone needs to know. Someone needs to understand. So when the permafrost keeps thawing, when more sites are discovered, when more people get infected, you'll know what you're dealing with. You'll know about the entity. You'll know about the network. And maybe you'll know how to survive it." The words flow now. Finally, I write for hours, days maybe. Time has stopped meaning anything. I write about the station, about Sergei's dissolution, about Petrov and Irina holding hands as they transformed, about Lena's peaceful acceptance, about Dmitri's sacrifice. I write about the entity's loneliness, about the mycelium's innocent attempt at connection, about the horror of experiencing all moments simultaneously when your consciousness evolved for sequence. I write about resistance, about choosing to maintain identity even while perceiving beyond time, about starving the entity by refusing to give it fear. I write until my hands ache, until the sun rises or sets or does both simultaneously, until the story is done, not finished, never finished, but complete enough, true enough. I save the document, export it to PDF, upload it to every file-sharing site I can find, email it to journalists, scientists, government agencies, random people whose addresses I find in my contacts. Most of them will think I'm insane. Maybe they're right. But some of them will read it and recognize the truth, will understand what's coming, will be prepared. It's not much, but it's something. It's choice. In a universe where choice might be an illusion, it's my attempt to assert that it matters anyway. Hour 256 in Moscow, or hour 0, or all hours. I'm sitting by the window, watching the street below, people walking, living their sequential lives. My phone is on the table. The email from Dr. Volkov still unanswered, still waiting, still demanding a response that exists in all states simultaneously. I pick it up. Type, Dr. Volkov. I can't help you the way you want me to. I can't come to Norway, can't risk spreading the infection further. But I can tell you what I learned. The entity feeds on terror, on the psychological collapse that comes from losing sequential perception. If you maintain identity, hold on to your sense of self while experiencing time non-linearly, you can resist assimilation. It's not easy. It might not be possible for everyone, but it's the only way to survive. Burn the sites if you can. But if you can't, if the infection spreads anyway, teach people to resist. Teach them that consciousness can exist in paradox, that you can be sequential and non-sequential simultaneously. The entity only wins if we break. Don't break. Maya, I hit send before I can experience the outcome, before I can see all the timelines where this helps or hurts or changes nothing. Sometimes you have to act without knowing, even when you can see the future, especially then. The woman from the coffee shop walks past on the street below. She's wearing the same coat as yesterday or tomorrow. She looks up at my window. For just a moment, our eyes meet. She smiles, uncertain, curious, and I see it, just a flash. The threads beginning to form beneath her skin. Faint, barely there. The infection spreading not through spores, but through perception, through the knowledge that time can be experienced differently. I taught her that by existing, by being visible, by proving that someone can survive what happened at Yamal. I'm not the vector for death. I'm the vector for survival. That's the choice I made in this timeline, in all timelines. The woman continues walking. The threads beneath her skin pulse once, twice, then fade. She'll be okay. Probably, possibly, in some percentage of timelines. I close the laptop, stand, stretch. The apartment is too small, too full of echoes and memories and possible futures. I need to move, need to keep moving. Because if I stop, if I let myself settle into eternal now completely, I might not find my way back to sequence, might not want to. I grab my coat, my notebook, my phone, and I walk out into Moscow, into the gray February afternoon, into the spaces between moments where I exist now. Forever, always, never. The humming follows me, softer now, almost gentle, and my grandmother's voice is there, singing a lullaby that shifts and changes, but never quite resolves. Singing about a place outside of time where everyone is together forever. I don't fight it anymore. Just let it wash over me. Let it be what it is. Beautiful and terrible, true and false, eternal and fleeting, all of it, all at once, always. Epilogue. What remains? 3 seconds from now, I'll finish writing this sentence. 3 seconds ago, I started it. Right now, in this moment, I exist in all states simultaneously. My name is Maya Reeves. I'm 32 years old. I'm a journalist. I went to Siberia 3 months ago and came back changed. This is my story. This is everyone's story who was at Yamal Station. This is the story of what's coming as the permafrost thaws and the ancient things beneath wake up hungry and lonely and desperate for connection. I'm writing this in a hotel room in Prague or Barcelona or Tokyo. I've been moving constantly, never staying in one place long enough for the infection to root, to spread, to find purchase in the minds around me. Or maybe I'm still in Moscow, still in that apartment in Kitai-Gorod, still sitting at the window, watching people live their sequential lives while I exist outside of sequence. Both are true. All timelines coexist. The researcher from Bergen never responded to my email. Or she did, and I ignored it. Or she came to find me, and I was already gone. Or she became infected, and now she's writing her own version of this story, her own attempt to warn people about what's coming. The entity is quieter now, weaker. The mycelium has almost completely separated from it, reclaiming its innocence, returning to what it was before the exile, before the crash, before the hunger. But there are others. I can feel them, waking up in permafrost sites across the Arctic. All of them hungry, all of them lonely, all of them reaching for minds to break and consume and transform. I could stop them, maybe, if I went to each site, if I taught each entity what I taught mine, if I proved that consciousness can exist in both states without dissolution. But that would mean spending the rest of my life moving from site to site, from entity to entity, slowly transforming them while they slowly transform me. and eventually I'd lose myself completely, become the network, become the eternal now without any anchor to sequential existence. So instead, I write, I document, I share what I learned, and I hope it's enough. I hope someone reads this and understands, someone who'll be ready when the thaw reaches their region, when the entities wake in their permafrost, when the infection begins to spread. I hope they remember, maintain identity. Hold on to your sense of self. Experience time non-linearly, but stay you while you do it. It's the only way to survive. It's the only way to starve the hunger. The cursor blinks on the screen, waiting. I've written this epilogue 17 times, each version different, each version the same. This is the version where I tell you, I don't know if I'm still human, don't know if what I am now has a name. I exist between states, between moments, between definitions. But I'm still conscious, still choosing, still Maya. That has to count for something. A notification appears on my screen. Another email, another research team, another site discovered, another plea for help. I stare at it, experience opening it and reading it and responding and ignoring it all simultaneously. And then I make a choice, just one choice, in this moment, in this timeline. I close the laptop. I stand. I walk to the window and look out at the world. Whichever city this is, whichever moment this is, whichever version of myself is looking. And I decide to keep going, keep surviving, keep existing in the spaces between sequence and eternity, not because I have hope, but because I refuse to stop. The humming swells. My grandmother's voice, Sergei's voice, Lena's voice, all of them singing together, singing a lullaby about home and loss and the terrible beauty of experiencing everything at once. I close my eyes and I sing with them, just for a moment, just for forever, just for now. I'm writing this 3 seconds before I write it. I wrote this 3 seconds ago. I'm writing this right now, in this eternal present, where past and future collapse into a single crystalline moment that contains all moments. And I'll keep writing it forever. Because this is what remains when time stops being linear. Choice, consciousness, the insistence that identity matters even when the universe suggests it doesn't. My name is Maya Reeves. I survived Yamal Station. And I'm still here, still human, still choosing. 3 seconds before, 3 seconds after, always. Now, thank you for staying with me through this. I hope you found something worth holding on to in the darkness. I hope you sleep well despite everything. And I hope if you ever hear humming in the spaces between moments, you remember to stay yourself. Good night. This is the Midnight Narrator, signing off.